Please stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you all for coming to our first scheduled budget work session. We have these tentatively planned for 2-hour segments. So we're going to try to stick to that time frame. Is that correct, Danielle?
Yes.
And you definitely have tonight, tomorrow scheduled, and Wednesday if needed.
Yes.
So we have Dr. Bob here, and I'm sorry,
Shelley.
from the library. And I think our plan was to start.
Yeah, I figured if it's okay with you guys that I would just start before we got into it too much. You're more than welcome to stay, but so that you don't have to. And just give this opportunity for the library to share anything with you guys, or you'd ask any questions of the library. And it's really open it up to you guys.
Can you give us just a second, Bob, to get to the library?
I'm sorry.
Can you give me just a second to get to the library?
Oh, okay. So Danielle just emailed out the budget in Excel format, if it's easier for you, and there's a library tab.
Okay, let me see if Andrew.
Is that library tab just the?
That's your
request?
budget, yes. So, and I do want to, I guess, just refresher for everybody. So the library has full authority to set their budget. The only authority that you guys have is their appropriation. So with that being said, you cannot request or require them to make changes to their budget. You can ask them questions about their budget and get clarification as to why they're requesting the appropriation that they're requesting, or any questions you guys have, they should be able to answer, but you can't say, oh, you're not gonna put that in your budget. That's completely up to the library board. And then you guys have the final say, whatever the appropriation will be.
Well, so as everyone's getting settled,
Yeah.
will you just walk us through these column headers? Obviously, 2020, we have the amended budgets, 2020,
I'm just gonna
2023.
Closer, because I can't hear.
That's fine. Year-to-date balance, which is current year projected.
Okay,
2023.
that's a column then
So,
that I didn't send, but.
no, so I was actually asking Danielle, because Bob, our whole, everything is sort of laid out like that, so I just want to make sure we're clear for everybody. So the 2020, so I'm looking at column H on the Excel spreadsheet.
So H is your department requested,
And
and then I is the administrator's recommendation,
okay, for 2024.
correct?
Does everyone understand that?
And then everything kind of prior to H is either current year, our projection, and then the previous 2 years budgets, just for
Could I
example.
get a copy of that? Because I don't have like her recommendation or anything.
If you want this one. I sent this out a week or I don't remember, but you can have that paper. That's the whole budget.
Okay.
Okay.
No, go ahead, Mike.
So have you discussed your recommendation with the library board at all? I mean,
I have not talked to the library board this year at all. So I input their budget exactly as they sent it to me. My administrator's recommendation, nothing has changed other than the appropriation. And the appropriation is ultimately up to you guys. So I put in last year what we talked about with the library. You guys funded them, and we talked about doing a state phased reduction of 25% per year. So that's what that is in here. But again, you guys set this completely. So this is an opportunity for you guys to get clarification, ask questions, for them to share anything that would be important in your decision.
This is the
And that
first time
doesn't-
I'm hearing of that agreement too, by the way.
You know, this was discussed last year with the whole board here,
That it was gonna be reduced 25% a year.
correct?
That's gonna come as news to every single member of the board. Because there's no way, I mean, I think we made it clear, there's no way we can go out and raise 25%. That what we're trying to do is going to take a certain amount of time. I mean, if you're telling me you want me to lay off people, I guess that's what I have to do. But 20, that's the only way you're gonna get 25% is to fire half staff.
Black and white, Bob, you requested 351,000, almost 352,000.
330, isn't it?
332,576, Mike.
And that
is what they're
includes,
requesting. So you're looking at their total revenues.
right,
Are
that
we
includes money
Yes,
for the attorney. Because we are in the process of trying to, get townships or the school district or whatever to form a village library. And money for the election process. These are all at the recommendation of our attorney. So that's $30,000. You take that $30,000 off, then we're back to what we asked for last year, plus a salary increase, a 3% increase overall, paying for a few things that were new expenses that weren't there last year that we found out about. We've never been, for instance, asked to pay for the auditor. And it just showed up. And that's fine. I mean, I understand that, but we can't ask for an appropriation for something we don't know is going to be charged.
Bob, I'm so sorry. Danielle, where are your numbers again? What are we talking about? I'm looking at one page and just give me your numbers again, please.
So if you look at the library, are you in the Excel sheet?
I'm in the Excel in the hard copy. You want me to look on the Excel?
So go to the library tab.
Mhm.
So up top, you'll see, if you look at the far right
Right.
column is the recommendation.
Right.
So you've got your revenues up top and then it breaks it down by funds.
Right.
Or by, I'm sorry, not funds, accounts. So you have the attorney services, DPW, and then the library. All of those expenses are set by the library.
And where's the,
So the appropriation is a transfer in from general fund up top under revenues. And it's highlighted.
Page 19.
there, that'll help me.
just worry about your last two column pointer.
Yeah, I'm looking at last comment. This is, H 19. That,
19.
that.
Can I ask a question? Why was the council not given our request? Because our request was very simple.
I think we have that.
Yeah, that is what's included here is your request. All of this is your numbers from what you sent over to James and I.
Right.
It's just in a different format because this is how they see the entire budget.
Yeah, it's broken down by all your payroll, all your new purchases, all your maintenance, all that stuff we do have. It's just in a different, she said it's a different format. So
Right,
we take everything.
right, all my percentages are gone, it's not the same presentation. And that's what that's what the library board sent to you. So I just have a question about, I feel like the information's been changed. I mean, I understand the numbers haven't been changed, but the presentation has been changed.
Not trying to be smart. Are you 100% sure on that? Because you haven't seen that paper to see all the numbers.
No, I have it in my hand.
Okay, but this is the first you're saying that you've seen it.
No, but I'm saying the numbers have been changed. I can tell that the presentation is different when my presentation looks very differently.
I just see numbers because it's what they've sent us.
Okay, that's my presentation, or the library board's presentation, and that's this one. The columns aren't there. The percentage of increase in the request is not there. So I just think it's, to me,
So
a
I'm,
lot of what we were trying to make clear is no longer clear.
Well, she just sent it to us, she said, here we go.
and Bob, I'm legally required to show 2 previous years projected current in the recommendation for the budget. So that's why it's put in the format for them. I did just forward that email that Greg sent to James and I. And that has all of your columns and everything you
Well,
that Greg sent.
That's true, but I was completely unprepared to discuss this stuff.
It's the exact same.
Well, we have yours in front of us, so why don't you run through that for us?
I don't have any more questions. I'm here to answer your questions. I would just say that overall, we tried to stick to a 3% increase, which is what we had done. I mean, we're certainly not keeping up with inflation, except for the employee salaries. And the board suggested I gave them both ways. I gave them a 3% increase, and I gave them a 5% increase. And that's what they voted to submit to you as a request. Then there are some other, things where we asked for more for insurance, for instance, because after talking to the village's insurance representative, he said the library board was not insured for liability under their current policy. So we went out and we added some of that. Like I said, the auditor's fees.
Hold on 1 second. Danielle, aren't all board members, don't they all fall under our umbrella policy? Or
No,
is the library outside of what
so
would be considered?
because the library is a separate authority.
Okay. Okay, so you're gonna need that in.
So we need that. The auditor, which was less than 800 this year, but I had just noticed in one of the Daniel's recent council packets that was going to be over 1,400 next year. So I put that on there. Danielle sent me a wonderful handy little calculator. So when you put in whatever your salary increase was going to be, it would project what the benefits increases would be. Now the benefits are going up substantially more than 3 or 5% they're projected to. So if you look really, when we're talking about just let's go back what our appropriation was last year. The appropriation last year did not include anything for attorney fees. Did not include anything for elections because we didn't ask for anything for elections.
And the elections are scheduled,
For the millage.
but that, when does that take?
We don't have it scheduled.
Is that November
We have-
2024, is that the earliest?
We are right now that we're saying November of 2024.
Okay.
But again, that's sort of speculative because the village library board cannot ask for a millage for a district library. That's the district library board, which does not exist yet.
So you have to draw your district first and go to the townships to get their.
And that's what we're trying to do. I mean, what happened actually is last year, I mean, this was kind of, I don't use the word sprung on us, but the request was made last summer. And so we said, okay, we'll go out to the townships and see, because I kind of, I tend to agree that the village is carrying the burden of paying for the library. I get this, and then we're serving all the townships. You don't have to convince me of that. But we have to go out to these townships and convince them to be part of this. So we went out and asked, we were sitting here talking, we said, we weren't then talking about the district library, we were talking about contract service fee. And Claire, who was up on that screen at the time, Claire, the lawyer from the Library of Michigan, said, ask them for the state minimum. Because there is a state minimum, which isn't a hard and fast thing, but it's what the minimum contract service areas are expected to contribute to the maintenance of the library. And that's 0.3 of a mil. So I figured out actually what that would be money wise, total wise, and we went to the different townships. We did that last August. And there was some, you were in the Blissfield room, and there's always a certain, I mean, you're asking people to pay money they've never had to pay for, and so there's always going to be some blowback. But talking with Al, Blissfield Township at one end of the spectrum seemed to be kind of on board to the point they were asking us to come up with contract language. Then we went to the other townships, and both Palmyra and Ogden said, "We want help. We're interested in doing this. We're going to have to put it to a vote." So they wanted ballot language. Riga seemed to think they could do it at a library. Okay, so that's kind of where we were. I don't know if that's still. I haven't been back to Riga, so I don't know if they still feel that way or not, because we've been to everybody 3 times now. So we go back to the attorney, and the attorney said, if you're going to go to a ballot for this, you should just seek the district now. Because why would you go to a ballot for $25,000 and then come back 2, 3, 4 years later and need to do it again for a district? Just do it now. And a district library, but obviously people outside the village would be paying money they've never paid before, but everyone in the district, their obligations for the library, I'm not saying their overall tax obligations, but their overall obligations to the library should come way down. Right now, people in the village of Blissfield pay about $3 million per person, per man, woman, and child, for the library. If we had a district library, depending again on how many people we could get on board, it would come down to less than 2. It may be considerably less if we could get the complete service area. That's one of the reasons for talking about going to the school district, because the school district brings in almost everybody at once. But all this is predicated on us continuing to be a viable and worthwhile library, a library worth supporting. That's why we have to continue to receive funding. And that is anticipated even in the statute, that the existing funding continues until the completion of the process. Shelley's been talking to a gentleman from the Climax Library that just went through this. They were a village library. They became a district library just recently. It took 3.5 years from start to finish. I don't know if it'll take that long, but we're working on it. But it's just like, I mean, it's not just me talking to Mike and saying, Mike, going yes or no. We're talking, we have to go to, address a group like this in Ogden and in Palmyra and in Riga or at the school board. Another reason why the school board is easier, because it's just one word. But then of course, going to the school board raises some complications, because there's a strip of Ogden that's not covered by the school board, and there's a triangle out of Riga that's not covered by the school board. So you have to work out what you're going to do about that. But that's where we are, and we're working on getting sustainable funding away from you guys and getting the library off your books. We're working on this. What we're asking you to do is continue to support us until we get it done, because we can't get it done. If we become a shell, then we're not going to be worth funding. No one's going to want to pay for that. So that's my plan to make the. I haven't planned to talk to you at all, but
Somebody
my
needs to
board
talk with
president
us.
had personal.
Someone needs to talk with us, because nobody is. You shared more in that 5 minutes than we've heard all year long combined. There's no communication. Danielle, my understanding, has gone ahead and information is trying to be taken back and forth. It's not, in my opinion, not being reciprocated. Bob, meaning the communication's not being reciprocated. Again, I know.
Well, I wouldn't say there's that much communication coming that way.
I think she's been asking for things and,
No, and I've been
I don't-
giving
I don't wanna
everything that's
cut-
been asked.
I wanna cut it short, I just wanna keep it on the budget.
but this part of the budget is knowing that
Yeah,
we
I-
have to know this material.
I agree, but it also, now that it's been said,
Okay,
let's get back to that topic when we're not.
Here's the issue though, we sat at this dais last year, the exact same time, and we
yes,
warned the library board, and we warned Bob that we have to come up with ulterior sources of funding. We have to figure out this contract language be for the building and for the employees. And I mean, that took almost a year to get that stuff done. So it's been a very, very slow process, and I think that's our frustration. You know, now we're gonna have to talk here as a board. How are we gonna fund a potential library roof? Because that's our building. It's a building that the library uses, but really, it's all falling back on the village taxpayers. Because the village is gonna be the ones that's maintaining this building. They're the ones that are doing the upkeep. We're gonna have to do the parking lot. We don't have any agreements in place. So it's been a very long and slow and lack of communication.
I know that the library board is still working on that agreement, but I will say. In January of 2020, we replaced the HVAC at over $20,000 out of the library fund balance.
The Rose funds are.
And the whole all the carpet has been done. I mean, nothing since I've been there. I've been there 17 years, and everything that's been done to that building has come out of the library fund balance. Not from the village.
Bob, you're asking for a $50,000 increase.
Sorry.
You're asking for a $50,000 increase in wages and benefits. Is that your understanding? When I look at line items, wages, part-time wages, social security, pension, health, dental, disability, health reimbursement, workers' comp, you can strike that out, high insurance.
We're asking for a 5% increase in wages, which results in concomitant increases in benefits. Now, the benefits are projected, according to Danielle, to go up significantly, on average, significantly more than 3%. I can't control the cost of benefits.
So I do want to add a couple of things because we do support the library. I want to be very clear about that. It is not our intention to not support the library. And I think that perception has been out for a long time. Our budget is very tight and we're looking at everything, not just the library. And just, I want to put this into perspective for you and the board. So you guys this year, your appropriation request from the current fiscal year to next year is an increase of $54,201. The village entire general fund is only being increased by $67,000. And that doesn't include your full 54, just our increase already. So I just overall want you to understand that it's not just the library, it's the entire village that we're looking at this.
Right. Well, if I mean, the 5% increase is what the board requested. That's what they sent. And I've always said this, if other village employees are not getting 5% increases, if they're only getting 3%, we can roll that back. I made a spreadsheet showing 3% or whatever. I don't know what you're doing. I know you were working on a salary study. We determined not to do that because the library board said, because it was going to cost $1,200 per position. And the library board's feeling was, we'd rather give that to you, to the staff, than pay it to a consultant. So that was part of that. I mean, obviously, this is a request. But if you start cutting 25%, which seems rather arbitrary, you're just going to cut 25%, then I would ask you, where are we going to get it? What are we going to do? I mean, we have to start cutting people, and then we're not the same library. Things like art at your feet go away. I mean, it becomes I mean, I've been here 17 years, you know? So I'm not looking forward to watching it wither.
Danielle, would you be so kind as to say those numbers again of the village comparison to the library's comparison of the appropriation?
This is only general fund. They're requesting, it's a $54,201 increase from this current fiscal year.
Right.
The total village budget is increasing by general fund, $67,364.
Well, let me point that out, that 54,000 would include money for the attorney and the elections.
Is
You
that
did not give us that
25,000?
last year anyway, so.
Is that $25,000 for both attorney and elections?
No, 25 for the attorney and 5 for the election, so it would be 30,000. So if you took
Okay.
away that, it would be 25,000. Or 24 and change. I mean, it'd be nice if you could help somebody be attorney, since we're kind of doing this at your request. But otherwise it has to come out of the library's fund balance, which is already running, has been running a deficit for years. Because if we have to continue to do what we do. But again, I mean, we're trying to make something that's worth keeping. Worth paying.
All right, any additional questions for Dr. Bob? Any additional questions for us, comments? No, Shelley? No,
I do have a couple of things. Bob, and I apologize that you don't have this right in front of you, but it probably is in that hard copy that was given. At the beginning of this year, it shows a fund balance. There's two different columns. One says 137,936 was a beginning fund balance in 22-23. And then this year proposed would be 158,286. Is that correct, Danielle?
That's
Right, because
based on
that,
the projected budget.
because are we talking about our fund balance or?
This is your fund balance.
Okay,
yes.
that's because nowadays, this is this year, and there are lots of changes between this year and previous years. The chart of accounts, which resulted in that $1,000 missing piece there that resulted in a little higher increase than I would like. And stuff like that. And the fact that now the appropriation never went into the library fund before. Okay, it was always paid directly out of the general fund. So what you're seeing is we're not gaining money. That's just the appropriation being deposited into the fund. By the time we get to the end of the year, that will. And we're not running, I'll say this, we're not running as much of a deficit as it appears to there. We're going to be down a little bit this year because we had to pay the attorney some, and that had to come out of the library reserves because there was no money. It was budgeted, it's on the budget, but it's not funded from the appropriation. So it has to be paid out of the library fund. So the library reserves, I'm still using the old language, the fund reserves. Essentially, I try, like programming, for instance, are sponsored, and I try to spend no more money than I get. I'm not going to do that. So anytime you see something like we would have had to have paid the auditor, for instance, out of the library fund reserves because there was no money in the appropriation request last year because we didn't know we had to pay it.
And we paid the second part of that. That's why it's lower.
I'm sorry?
We paid the second part of that. That's why it's lower.
I thought there was going to be more and then it never happened.
Yeah,
So.
because we absorbed that in the
Well, thank
general
you.
fund to help the library.
So that's why you didn't specifically ask for funding for the events, the artist at your feet, Face State.
No, we don't ask for that
Something-
because I pay for that with sponsors. Okay. No, that's always paid directly from sponsors through the library fund. We ask the appropriation request is operating expenses. Sort of thing can't get,
For auditing
Sponsorship,
purposes, though, it
okay.
should be like a sort of a tit for tat, like it should just be, you know, if it's gonna cost you 500 to put on an event. You should still include that in your budget, that you have to sponsors, or, you know, seek sponsorships or take that as a revenue and then expend it, because it kind of looks like it's not gonna happen the way that it reads.
well, see, that's one of my, I do that on purpose because it's just like stuff that is customarily funded by a grant. Well, suddenly that grant could dry up. Suddenly Chris Mallett could say, I'm retired, I'm moving to the Bahamas. Sorry. That's what happened with the railroad. We were getting $5,000 a year from the railroad for summer reading. So now, you know, I've got to go find that.
So who pays that then? Like, so when you have an event,
Oh, because it's a different person. It's just a different person who owns the railroad.
I'm sorry, so I'm gonna use Art at Your Feet.
Okay.
As an example,
That's
so you took in sponsorship, so where does that money go?
First of all, they don't pay it till the end of the year. But it goes into our savings account,
And then where does the expense come out of?
the savings account.
Okay,
We have to document.
yeah, that can, everything.
That's not on here at all. And that's not on here because it's not part of the appropriation request. Our directive was to make an appropriation request. And that's what we did.
Yeah, we're talking two different things at this point,
Yes, we,
but I do understand that.
we
concern.
probably need to have a conversation about that.
Just making sure the funds are recognized. And expenses realized, just
Yes.
has nothing to do with budget. Nothing for the appropriation, just for bookkeeping and audit.
No,
purposes.
we
Yeah.
spend a lot out of the library fund. I bring in grants and sponsorship, I bring in close to $15,000 a year. And sometimes it carries over, you know, and I did that like during the pandemic when we couldn't do all the state to state programs. I planned that whiskey and chocolate thing for when we could, because I had money, I had excess money that I could roll into a much bigger
Right.
fund program that we did in, you know, in conjunction with the DDA First Thursdays. So that worked out really
So
nice.
who's,
But I keep spreadsheets for all of them.
And I
all
think
programs.
that's one of the things that the communication that I was referring to. I really think there is this very large gap. And this is a very good example of this very large gap. Danielle's asking for the appropriations. You're doing what you know as appropriations, but we also, if we don't see this other stuff, we don't know the whole story. And we have to know the whole story. I'm not trying to be micromanaging, I hope that's not what it sounds like, and it's been, as Danielle stated, the support of the library is there, but it's very challenging when we don't have the total
Well, I can
picture.
easily give you
But
that. I
the
mean, that's
problem
not
is
a
this, is
problem.
that
In fact,
it's coming after the fact, when I wish the stuff would be coming
that,
throughout the year.
you're getting the full budget. When I send you the board meeting documents and it contains every expense, including everything that comes out of the library fund is in gray. On those documents that I give you. I give you the board meeting documents, and it includes a spreadsheet just like this, a big one like that has every single account on it, every single expense.
How many funds do you have? How many accounts do you have? Do you have this operating budget that I guess that runs through the village? And then you had some previous donations, I guess, right? Like Tull and Rose and what are those?
Those are gone.
They're
long gone.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but there's nothing sitting like rainy day fund separate account.
We have a bank account that has a little over $100,000 in it, but like I said, it shrinks, it doesn't go up.
Understood. But there's.
But yes, there is money there, and I'm not saying that, and yeah, but it is a rainy day fund, but if we spend it all in a year.
Good. But that also could be the premise to get us moving forward to seeking ulterior sources. This is what we're trying to
This is
accomplish.
what we want. And if obviously if you don't give us any money, if training, that's what.
Eric, it was still with you.
I think he answered what I was looking for.
And I think Shelley, you had a comment.
Well, I just wanted to, we are trying to find alternate funding. We are trying to become a district library. We get longer sustained, more stable. We are trying to do that. And what I'm learning as I'm going along this process, it's quite a process. And I've talked to the attorney, I've talked to other people, another library that has done this, and they told me it took 3.5 years. I don't know how long that's going to take us, but we are actively working at doing that. We are trying to do that.
I mean, and
Here's the thing though, until 2 or 3 months ago, we didn't even know that you had met with.
No.
Any other townships or anything like that. That's the problem. And we
Well,
sat up
and
here last
there
year and
wasn't-
specifically said, we're not gonna be able to
Yeah.
fund where we're at. I mean, I think that was cut and dry. We were very, very adamant that we have to make cuts this year.
But
We
I-
had to.
We had to see some movement.
Yes.
And we asked for that communication to take place. And
but I mean, if they won't give us any money,
well, it makes
It's
them
like-
understand, if we see what we see here, and this could be very much the thought of it is, well, they would like this much money, they want this much of an increase, and we see them working towards nothing. That's what it seems like. Am I wrong, you guys?
No, I would agree.
So that's where our issue is, and so I understand.
well, and
I understand where James is saying about the communication, we can't go back on that, but this communication, I thought there was a group of people that were supposed to be meeting regarding this agreement and all this kind of stuff, and things just aren't getting.
and you'll have to talk to Greg about that. From what I understand, that was
But
difficult
things
to
are
get
not
that
getting-
meeting, those meetings.
Things aren't getting completed / communicated, and therefore, because of that lack of, there's very minimal understanding.
And we are trying to work out a rotation so that someone from the library is here.
I've
But
seen that in your notes.
okay, let me say too, in years past, the village administrator came to our meetings, came to the library board meetings. So it seemed like there was a certain amount of anger at the very beginning of this, that why isn't the library ever here? But the library has never come here. I mean, it's never been asked to, it's never been expected. And so to act like, why aren't they here when
No,
it's.
it's not why you're, that's why you're, it's the communication via an email, via, we see your board minutes. And until very recently, we didn't know that there was anything taking place, honestly. I'm not making this up. These guys are in agreement with me.
I mean, you get the, I mean, I sent everything that I give to the library board. If you looked at my director's report, I pleaded with them to start to join in a rotation, because I gotta tell you, I spend enough time away from my family as it is, and I cannot come here every month. And I was trying to get a rotation going. Shelley has been very good about going to the township meetings and things like that. And we're trying to get that going, and someone was supposed to come in July, and it didn't happen.
When I think you also asked in one of your last things that you should have a very high presence here.
I'm sorry?
I think you also requested your board to have a very high presence at this meeting,
Right.
and we have 2 of you, which is wonderful.
Correct.
And you're able to explain things. But
As far as the communication is concerned, do you feel that you could come to our board meetings? Any one of your
Yeah,
board members, can they? attend
I've made that
our board meetings?
recommendation.
You think what?
I have made that suggestion.
Yeah, and I think it seems like that would be another way of just reducing the workload if we did alternate months, or maybe it doesn't even have to be done every single month, but I mean, if we did even alternate months.
All great discussion items. We've been talking about the library budget for 40 minutes. We're not making any decisions right now, right? We're gonna go back through general fund and start working our way down. Is that the plan?
So you guys are going, whatever decision you make regarding the library is going to impact any funding you ever capital, so.
But are we making that decision now? Are we gonna start with general fund and work our way through?
You really probably need to start with the library, because right now,
Okay.
depending on what appropriation. Because that's the big variable for you guys, other than your capital projects.
All right. So let's,
You guys have ran in the red. For the 2021, 2022, 2023 fiscal years. I mean, those are right in front of us, 15,000 or almost 3,500 and almost 40,000.
Where's this?
The last 3 years that
We're in the red.
the fund balance, yes, went
Oh, the library fund. balance.
correct, yes,
Correct, but not the appropriation.
exactly. So. Again, the village is paying more than, or you're spending more than what we're getting.
No, this was, first of all, this is the first year that appropriation has gone into our savings account. Before, it never came out of your bank account. You paid the bills from the general fund, and it never came to us. So there's no. That money did not go into our bank account until this year. And trust me, we will spend very nearly all, any money we don't spend by September 8th, we will spend by November 1st, because we have some things we have to do outside the building and stuff like that. But, or there may be I don't know. I mean, we may have budgeted a little too much here and there for something, but I think it's better to budget too much than too little.
Well, I don't know where these numbers come from then, because they show.
No, but I mean, we are not. We are.
But we're
The
also,
money that-
we still haven't come to an agreement on the lease of the building, and now we're gonna talk about maintenance on that. We're talking about $100,000 roof, coming down the pipe. Here, within the next year or two, it's gonna have to. So what happens if that roof starts to fail? Where are we gonna fund that? So we have not come to an agreement. We have not moved forward on. These big challenges that we've tried to work out to say, okay, is it the village's building, is the library gonna maintain it? There has to be some sort of funding mechanism back to the village if it's gonna be the village's building and the library's gonna utilize it. Technically for free, you know what I mean? If we're gonna pay for the maintenance, if we're gonna pay for the roof. If we're gonna pay for the parking lot,
Again, I will
it's a
point out
village
that
building.
if any deficit the library fund has run has been because of things like the HVAC and carpeting and everything else. It's not, I mean, there's with the library board, the library fund has put a lot of money back.
How much do you have in that reserve fund? You said 100,000.
I'd have to go look. I mean, I don't have.
What is the
thing right in
plan
front
for
of
that?
me.
That is to
I mean,
purchase
if you have
books
your
and
copy,
supplies with them.
the savings account is on there as well. The documents I send you every month, the savings account is right on there.
Is the savings account different than where we put your
No,
appropriations?
same thing. Well, yes, I mean, there's a savings account and then there's an operating account. That was the way it was set up this year.
Who's on the savings account?
Who's on it?
Like, is that a village account?
Oh, yeah, Brandon. Brandon moves money from it, occasionally, the operating account, like the first part of the year. At the first part of the year, we have a lot of expenses right there, so, and you're just putting in the appropriation quarterly. So we would actually run out of money during that first quarter in the operating account, and we would move money from the savings account into the operating account. But that operating account is kind of a new thing. That's the only thing that's in the operating account is the appropriation and whatever the interest it earns.
Is that a village savings account with the library?
It does say dealership is doing a big statement.
Are we tracking that?
Yes, we are checking that. I do a big break every month.
Yeah, I get my numbers from him.
Okay.
All
And
right,
it,
so
when you check an outbreak fund balance, it is in that book. It is in that book.
So then the fund balance is, I listed that in my Excel sheet. The beginning of this fiscal year is 137,936. Projected at the end of this year They're projected to have 158,286.
Yeah, I don't think.
Can I, they have, I think it's 107,000, you have in the state of Chicago. That's big.
Again, I mean, if. I can send you a copy of what the balance is, but it will not be that much.
All right, so then we have to start making some decisions. Attorney, let's start with wages. 5% increase in wages. You, as the administrator, you agreeing with the department as far as,
So we don't have any control over their budget, so my recommendation
Oh,
is
right.
library was because of that.
so we're
When it
looking at,
comes-
we're looking at a bottom line figure then.
Yes, so and this is gonna be a little bit, I'm not sure what we wanna do here, so the library elected not to participate in the compensation study. The compensation study for our employees, what we did is 3% increase. But based on the recommended salary study, they're moved to the next closest step, which we're gonna get into tomorrow. So our increases vary based on that compensation study, but it's not less than the 3%. So I don't know, because we did not include the library employees, I don't know if they would just get the 3% or how that compares. I would say they not get less than 3%, because that's, again, our employees are getting the 3%, but anything above that, I don't have data for.
I'm not as worried about me. But people at McDonald's start at $14 an hour, and I've got people on my staff who do very responsible jobs, making less than $12 an hour, and they've been there for 8 years. And so I would point that out.
That's why it would have been helpful to be a part of the compensation study.
I'm just pointing it out. I think there is some sense that
Because that would have been so helpful to you guys. That could help us making that kind of a change.
Excuse me.
So the main thing you guys need to focus on, James, is that appropriation. That's what you have the authority over, and that's what I was trying to say at the beginning. The library board fully sets their budget, so my recommendation is exactly what they sent.
Right.
With the exception of the appropriation, which is ultimately, that's you guys.
And that's the 209 figure.
Correct.
But I mean, if you don't give us that appropriation, our budget can't be what we set the budget at.
Problem is. The request, the amended budget from last year was 278. And you're asking for 332 this year.
Say again,
You requested 278 last year, and you're requesting 332
again, with
this year.
30,000 being the attorney and the election
Okay, so,
that were not there last year.
but you're still asking for an increase from appropriations from the village, and that's the
I'm asking you to
problem.
consider it.
Well, he's essentially, if you read down, Bob is absolutely correct. He's asking for attorney services of 25,000. And he's asking for wage increases of roughly the remainder. Operating expenses really are similar, negligible, the variance is, very similar. So it's wage increases and
The
attorney
attorney
fees.
services is in this current year at 25,000 as well. So that's not an increase. They requested that this year. You guys reduced their appropriation less the attorney fees last year to the 278, 375.
Correct.
But that expense was never.
We did ask for it. We did ask for it. You didn't give it to us. That's what I guess I should have put that.
Okay.
And again, it was never removed, so it's.
Right, so their expense, they never, when you guys did your appropriation last year, they initially had requested And I'm going up 302,000, I think 375.
No, it wasn't that much. It wasn't 375.
The 302,000,
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, it was 25, it was two, whatever it is, whatever it was, plus 25,000. Perfect.
Right, and you guys, but that expense stayed in there, so this current fiscal year, they budgeted $25,000 in expenses. Which is why I'm showing that they actually will increase their fund balance by about 20,000, because I'm showing that they've only projected to spend about 2,000 of that.
Yeah, but we never budgeted. This is numbers. This is not actual money. These are tricks of arithmetic. This is, we never budgeted $25,000. We budgeted 5 after we did not get the funding for the 25.
Okay, but in our fund, we had 25,
No, there's no money there, Danielle. There's no money. You didn't give us any money for that. You just said they reduced it by $25,000. There is no funding for it. There's a number there that says $25,000, but there's no revenue.
There's nothing to carry over.
It's not a part of the appropriation. You just said it.
I agree it's not part of the appropriation, Bob, but it was still in your budget as a projected expense. Is what I'm saying. It was never removed.
It was
So-
never removed by you, it was removed by us. But,
Because we didn't
well,
have
actually, it was
it.
never removed. It was shifted to the library fund because it was a necessary expense if we were going to do what you wanted. But all the library board has approved, because they approve it as they go along. All the library board has approved so far is $5,000 for attorney expenses.
With discussion from the board, regarding the amount for the requested / recommended. I am in favor of our administrator's recommendation of the $209,000.
I mean, we're really in a crapshoot here, Bob, because the assumption was that we were gonna appropriate less. I mean, I think that was the assumption by this board, is we were gonna appropriate less to the library this year. I don't remember the 25% number or whatever, but I think we were adamant that it was gonna have to be a different funding mechanism to operate as normal. I think we were pretty cut and dry, black and white, that you knew that had to happen, and it hasn't happened. So not only are we having to come up with the regular expenses that we requested, now you're talking wage increase, benefit increases. I get that, but you're asking for more than what we even said we were going to give last year. That's the struggle. There's been no action on, or very minimal action on getting these other townships involved or whatnot. I mean, there's no way we can fund this. There's no way we can fund this request. You could lock the doors to the other township people knocking on the door for saying $5 and come on in, but we can't continue to carry it as a village. If everybody in the district, whatever we want to call it, to utilize the library, they're going to have to pay their fair share. We can't continue to carry the
Correct.
carry out the backs of the village residents. We had to make a cut, and
You see,
there's no way.
you're asking for us to do something that is on the face of it impossible. We can't make it happen overnight. We've been working on it, and I think it's clearly working, and we can't if basically, and I don't know. I mean, I said you say we support the library, but you don't.
Well, here's the problem. We were not told at all this year that there was going to be an increase in funding to us this year. Never. We had no idea until we saw it.
Everything goes up. Inflation is rampant.
Because we assumed, we projected to you that we had to pay give you less appropriations this year.
Well, actually,
don't know, to be more
yeah,
clear about that.
I didn't hear that. I mean, I'm gonna say it's not because of my deafness, but I think, again. None of, Kelly wasn't with us at that time, but none of, and I swear, sure as hell wish my board members were here. Because I don't think they would agree.
I remember
with they heard
part of the discussion occurred when, I believe it was Claire, is that the woman's name, and she was here with us, and that discussion took place while she was here.
And
I
we-
remember
that. Saying
we said we don't want to be in this position at this time
Next
in
year.
the year, and we're.
Well, what I remember saying is, unless you see movement, that's what you said. You said, unless you see movement, you're not gonna be able to do anything. So, I mean, I'm not, there's no headings on this, so it's hard for me to know exactly what, I'm looking at.
Well, we have your request as well, so you can refer to that.
You know, I think what a couple other trustees here have mentioned about the request not seeing it until just very recently. It was voted on at your July 13th meeting. President Greg Brown called for a motion to approve the minutes. Okay, and then on the next action item was called for a motion to approve the appropriation request as amended. So if it was done on July the 13th and approved, it says it was carried unanimously. We haven't seen that until.
And it was sent to you almost immediately after that. It was sent to James by Greg. I have a copy of the email. I can send it to you.
I'm not going to dispute your word. I believe you.
I was a little surprised that I was sitting here listening to James say, "You just got this morning," and that seemed a little strange to me. That you said you just got this morning. You said Danielle sent it to you this morning.
That's your paperwork,
My paper.
well,
Your version.
your version of the.
Your version of the
Okay,
budget
so
request.
you didn't
We
get
had
it.
ours
You didn't get it till this morning.
We've had ours for a while.
13 days, 14 days.
But it's the same numbers. It's the same report. It's in a different format.
So we're gonna have to spend half the library fund balance.
I say we move on from the library. I say we come back to it. We got to talk about
I agree with that,
10 other budgets.
but how can we go ahead and talk about those budgets if we don't know what we're budgeting for the library?
Because we're gonna have to take and give this entire process. We're gonna have to decide what we want to spend on what and what doesn't get funded. I mean, that's just the way across. We've got infrastructure improvements, got recommendations. We have to pick and choose what we're gonna do, what we can afford to do, what we're not gonna do, what we're gonna put on the,
But I think all
the
that,
next couple of years.
I won't disagree, but I think all that does bear into not knowing how
It
much
does,
money we get here.
but I would say
Why are we not just making a decision on this number, say 209 or 215 or 220 or 187?
because they can't operate as such without what they're asking for, and they also can't move forward with moving towards a district library without some sort of funding mechanism. So I get what you're saying, but again, in looking at all these fund balances, or these funds, we're gonna have to shift and pick and choose and decide what gets funded and what doesn't. So looking at the big picture, we're gonna have to piecemeal all of these funds together and say, here's what we can afford, here's what we can't, here's what we put on the back burner or move forward. And maybe they get 25,000.
The library can run on the 209,000. They have to use some of the other monies that they have, but it can be done.
I thought that it's 249, that's what I'm saying. That's Danielle's suggestion, 249. Am I looking at the wrong page?
209.
209 appropriated from the village.
I mean, if it's 295,
No, it's 209.
209,
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, we'd have to spend the entire library for fund reserves in 1 year, and then that's it.
That would leave you with a $53,957.
No, it wouldn't, this is something not right.
That's if you run it on your current figures.
Correct. The only way that would not be accurate is if there's expenses and revenues that we are not currently tracking.
I think there's some misunderstanding here. I think you still got that $25,000 there, which never existed.
Correct, which is why I'm showing your fund balance to increase this year. So you started the fiscal year with 137, and I'm showing that you would end it with 158.
And I think you're wrong.
Yeah, it shouldn't be, well. If it wasn't removed from the budget,
It wasn't on our side, it may have been.
Then it is.
Right, but there was no money put in for it. It wasn't removed from the budget, but it wasn't funded.
right?
There is, though.
It's a phantom.
I'm not entirely sure that you guys are budgeting the same way that the village is. I think there's a disconnect in understanding the village
I
budget.
think when you didn't fund, when you said you were gonna give us whatever it ends up being, 278, 375, or whatever it is. And so that 25,000 wasn't there, we took the $25,000 off our budget. And then resurrected it as $5,000 as an expense from the library savings account.
But those
You
changes
just never
weren't
took
made,
it off.
those changes weren't made on the village's end, is what
Correct.
you're saying is correct.
Yes.
Correct.
The village was not known, it was not informed.
Well, we were not informed it was still there until I started seeing it on the
You
report.
get the budget report every month. Brandon sends it to you.
Yeah, and I was wondering why. Why does it say $25,000 there when it's not funded? That money is not in our appropriation, is what I'm saying. It's not there.
So we could start talking
You
about.
understand, you're nodding like you
Yes,
understand. Okay, good. I'm glad I'm not even saying.
yeah, it's shifting in balance of phantom, appropriations, absolutely, it's not cash in hand, it's literally just the numbers.
Yeah,
I get
it's
it.
called fund accounting and it's sitting in our general fund being appropriated to your budget. So that $20,000 is available to you to spend on lawyers.
From our savings account.
No, from
Because-
our general.
I don't think this is really helping,
But it's not part of the, well, it's not part of our appropriation though, nothing, we have never asked you to send any money for that $25,000 to us, ever.
It's not gonna go into. your
But
savings
the
account.
books say that you were going to, and the assumption is that the books are correct, and so
Well,
you would
yeah,
have that
there's-
money.
there's no
Because
actual
that's
money.
how we're holding where our funding structure is.
So I'm gonna make a proposal that we take into consideration current library status. Proposed recommendation. And we've got to try to, again, appease everyone. We've got to try to help Bob develop a game plan and execute. He's developing the game plan. I have spoken to the board members. They are trying to execute, move to a larger district. He is right in the fact that if we start to defund, they will become a shell themselves. But I don't know if we can fully fund your request. So I think negotiations have to start elsewhere in this budget, so we can start making progress. Come back and see if we can get closer to what is being requested. Does that suffice for everyone? I know that was long-winded.
That's what I was going to say, so.
Great. So
So
you're welcome to stick around. Please do. Where could we start to make the largest impact? Work back to the
Okay.
library budget.
So before, you were gonna start in general fund, because that's where their appropriation is and it makes the most sense, I
Okay.
think.
We have got to get on the same billing system. You guys have to get on BSNA. you've got QuickBooks, right, which you keep track of your funding
I
schedule.
keep track on QuickBooks.
We have
Yeah,
got to,
but I
we
don't
have
share
got to be
that
on the same
information.
schedule, because that's where the discrepancy is. Changes are being made in QuickBooks on your end, but they're not being made in BSA.
Well, no, not really, because again, the QuickBooks is just for me personally, that's really all that is. That's just the note-taking device. Every single thing I send to you comes from Brandon's reports. That's what I send to the board, and that's what's in the board documents that come to you, is Brandon's reports. So it's all the same thing.
So come end of this fiscal year, end of September, you're not gonna be spending that 25,000, is what you're saying, that you were appropriated.
Well, because it's not actually there.
It's been appropriated.
It has not.
On our books, it has been. It
No,
hasn't been changed
okay.
to reduce.
We got
Hold
an
on,
appropriation.
this is
of
not,
$270,000.
hold on, this is not gonna get resolved, we've got to move on to the technical.
Okay,
I get it, it's bookkeeping, so
exactly.
that's what it is, so the $20,000 belongs to the library fund, it's sitting in our account, the money exists, it's real. Whether you spend it or not, if you don't spend it,
It just stays in their
your
fund.
fund on our books is gonna increase 20,000. If you do spend it, then so you know it's there.
How come that money's not in my bank account on the reports Brandon sends me?
Your bank account is separate from our operating and our fund balances.
Okay, all right.
So the
okay.
20,000 is in
Okay,
our bank. account.
Okay, well, that just makes sense.
But it's
But-
on the books appropriated to.
Okay,
you and the library.
but again, I've never operated with the assumption that I had that money.
We're learning that
Okay.
tonight.
All right, well, I appreciate your willingness to discuss and to negotiate, but I'm. So.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm gonna start at the bottom on one item and then we're gonna jump up to the top.
That's fine.
It's just because the bottom item will kind of tie into everything.
What
So-
cell are you in?
If you go all the way to the bottom, 655, 656. And the very far, it's not even really a column. There's a little notation for a 3-month reserve would be $450,000 and you've got your ending fund balance is 681. So if you guys want to maintain that 3-month,
Is everybody there?
if you want to maintain that 3-month reserve for emergencies, it's recommended at 2 to 4. You would have 231,766 available in capital projects.
So that makes sense.
And I want to share that number so you can kind of keep that in your mind as we start going through the general fund.
So do we have that available for anything or if just for capital projects?
Anything,
Okay.
yes. So,
But you're saying per the auditor's request, 2 to 4 months
so you,
reserves.
you
So that's
could-
what we're trying to stay is at 3.
yeah,
You can dip below, which is a recommended, or we can make more, which I
Well-
highly recommend either, but
$450,000 would be.
correct.
And so 681, so it gives us the flexibility of 232,000.
Yes.
Got it. Back up to the top.
Okay, so if we go all the way back to the top. Revenues is at the beginning, and there's really not a huge change here. In fact, you'll see that it decreased by. Or is proposed to decrease by about, I think, 5,000.
56,050.
Yeah. So part of that is currently in the general fund, we revenue in 302 training funds for the police department. And this year we're at, I want to say, right, but I think it was $2,000.
that's your new fund that you operated down in the
Correct.
training.
So,
fund. You
and that's all the way at the end. The reason we're proposing to make that a separate fund, which is all the way to the very last sheet, is because the chief is required to report every year on what we spend. And our balance never matches what the state's balance because we have it meshed into general fund. And what we were doing is like, we would say he's expected to get $1,000 revenue and he's gonna spend 1,000, but really he's able to carry those forward for a 3-year
It's
period.
only for police,
Only
less
for
training
police.
within the PD, whatever training fund, I mean. That way we know.
Okay, we can absolutely rename that, because yeah, it can only be used on qualified expenses, so that's
Like
been,
his forfeiture.
yes, it's very similar to that. He can use it for equipment or training. Again, as long as it meets the rules. Otherwise, we are projecting that our fines and ordinance fines decrease a little bit, which has kind of been the trend. This,
Let's tell you're right, Danielle.
yes, I apologize, it's 24.
Thank you.
This may change if we get this new ordinance in place, which allows us to charge the fines here. I'm not comfortable recommending that to you guys until we can get a year under us and see what that looks like. Again, otherwise, the revenues are pretty in line with what they were this year. Do you guys have any questions on the revenues?
And that's 46, right?
General forfeitures,
Correct.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
what is general forfeitures?
So general forfeitures would be a forfeiture made by the police department while operating.
Okay, and what about reimbursements?
Reimbursements is from our insurance company, so because it's a,
I think that's the schools.
oh, I'm sorry.
The school resource officer.
Reimbursements is the school resource officer. I apologize. I forgot it's insurance refunds for.
So that's not actually revenue. It is as far as,
So it has to be recorded as revenue, but it
I'm
is,
just letting everyone know it's
yes,
money.
it is then expensed out directly for the SRO. So the agreement with the school is that the school will fund wages and benefits, and then we fund their outfitting, so their uniforms, their guns, any equipment that they need, training, things like that.
Yeah.
Can you explain where the local community stabilization share is paid from?
Yes,
I'm sorry, it's tough up towards top, it's like a.
115 and 16
Yeah,
there.
large increase. I'm not reading myself. I guess I can open that first.
That's okay.
Oh, no, you're good. So that is the state revenue sharing. So that is money that the state sends to us, which we have been seeing increase, but we wanted to, because we're not really comfortable with where the market's going this year, we've left those pretty close to the same.
These things are extremely challenging to read. I get out hated because ever since it's just, look at your revenues, and we know that's pretty basic. And then our expenditures is just been broken down by each subsection. It's not terribly difficult, but the transfers in, I'm looking at the sewer and the water fund, again, remind me what those were
So
from.
that is the final loan payment from water and sewer that was made by general fund. So that revenue, this will be the last year we see that revenue, and then they will be completely paid off and owe no money to the general fund. And because they're enterprise, they're supposed to pay that money back.
That's because we borrowed from like 2 or 3 years ago, correct?
Correct. It was pre my time, I believe, when it went in.
Since, I think she was 28.
When you made the switch for the accounts.
So they took out,
That's the end of next year.
yes.
Well, this year technically.
Yeah, this will be the final year, and then water and sewer is completely
Which is
paid up.
good
Done.
for the
That's good.
utility funds.
Yes,
Interest income, is that investment income?
that's just our interest rate from the banks, or if we were to invest, it would be from that.
Have we gone ahead with any of that?
No, we have not, well, I should correct myself, so you guys did approve for us to put some money into some CDs that were short-term that we could pull, which does get a little bit higher rate for us. We're trying to maximize that as much as possible, but still keep all of our funds liquid, because we don't just have a ton of excess funds to tie up somewhere.
Okay. It's power lease payment, that's what Verizon gives us.
Correct. Any other revenue questions? Okay, so the next, so then we go into expenditures. So the first department is council. There is an increase here because we're proposing to replace 2 laptops. So this current fiscal year, we replaced 2. I'd like to do 2 more, and then I'd like to get either in the habit of minimum doing 1 a year, but we were kind of playing catch up to start with. So you guys. $2,500 would be an area if you were looking to save, so make room for somewhere else, you could potentially delay this. Or you could reduce it to 1 as well, that would be completely up to you guys. Otherwise, the rest of it is pretty much, it's your wages. The outside contractor is, our services for the translation services, that we have via Zoom, and that's paid for through the council fund. And then,
Because the meetings have closed captioning, is there anything we can do with that?
Through the ADA, if it's requested, Americans with Disability Act, we have to have a interpreter.
Okay,
so until that request, or unless it's pulled, then we would have to continue providing that.
okay. Council wages looks low.
So your wages are split up between the various funds, so this is just a percentage or a portion of your total wages.
This is just general fund council. wages.
Correct.
And you're based that technically kind of on what we spend our time working on discussing.
So we
like water,
use our revenues to, because you guys kind of do everything, we use our revenues as a baseline and then match those percentages of your time. So where we're earning more, we're probably we assume we're doing more, and then that's how you guys are budgeted out.
Technically, you should see a larger chunk of our wages, whatever council outlay, this whole department council coming out of wastewater treatment plant or water treatment plant, technically more than
Right.
parks and rec.
And that does not have any increase for the council wages. It's that your wages would remain the same.
Right.
Any questions, changes?
I'm just gonna highlight the replacement of the laptops.
Okay.
That's
Yeah,
all.
because we can always come back to that if
Yeah.
you guys so choose. Okay, administrator is the next section. So this is similar to you guys. This is a portion of my wages that would be split out throughout the funds. And this is based on approximately, it's not an exact science, the work that I do in each of the different departments, which again may vary, but typically is fairly consistent. This really, the only increase is just the wages and benefits, but if you guys have questions, changes.
Did you base it on the 3% for everybody then?
So yes, all of the wages for all of the employees in this budget account for the recommendation by MML and the 3%. And we'll go into a lot more detail tomorrow about wages. I just wasn't sure tonight if we would have enough time, and I wanted to make sure we could talk about that.
Well, you took your wages out of the vehicle fund last year, correct? Or part portion of them?
Yeah, so last year I removed my wages and the zoning administrator wages. This fiscal year, I'm removing the clerk and the treasurer.
Okay, that's what I,
Yeah, we're stepping it down.
all right. Thank you.
Any other administrator questions? And I don't have any proposed capital projects at all or anything like that.
Yeah, vision, we're providing vision again, right? That's our newer one, vision and dental.
So we provide vision for our employees. If they want to have their entire family, they pay for their dependents and spouse, but we are paying for the employee. And then dental, we have had that for the employees. And that would continue. We do not have that identity card anymore. That was removed last year.
Is the vision on there, Danielle?
Yes.
I care.
So right there,
76.
76, I hear you, yeah, okay, gotcha.
All right, I mean, we're trying to cut, but I'm not trying to, it just starts with you, like, what are you recommending? We have to know, like, what is MML requesting or recommending that we increase these, because you're gonna go to the next one, clerk and treasurer. Wage goes up 10,000 on each from the previous fiscal year. So we need to know what are the recommendations.
I did finalize that today. I will email that to you guys and we'll talk about that tomorrow. So
That's gonna control a lot of the discussion. Where can we, do we ultimately raise the wages all the way up to what the MML is recommending? Or do we have to make cuts? Do we have to make choices? Do we have to meet in the middle? That's gonna be a basis of a lot of our discussion on where we're at funding mechanism wise. So again, that's why I would have loved to have had those recommendations, that information in front of us.
So I did send that to you with the final report from MML as soon as I
And
got.
that's what you're recommending, is what they said, but you've got different tiers, you've got different, different
So they
stages.
recommended the 3% and the employees be to the very next level. So today I finalized a list of all the employees with their current wage and their proposed, but that is within the MML document. So they're giving you a range of for each job, they're saying that they need to be somewhere between that step 1 and step 10.
And how do we determine that?
So some of them are already within that range. So we would keep them there and move them up to 3% and then the closest level. And I'll send you that document to Mike so that you guys can see. I kind of break it down where their report is just a very broad general total. Okay, so next section is administrative assistant. This is actually proposed to decrease because we had budgeted, we didn't know who was going to be in that position, and we had budgeted for family benefits and Stacy's individual benefits. But do you have any questions? Oh, and I'm sorry, desk computer replacement of $1,500. You guys could remove this. She definitely needs a computer. She has one of the oldest in the office. I did get a quote for this. I don't know how we've kind of replaced those in the past, but this is another thing. Really, it would be nice if we could start doing like one a year on a rotation so that we don't get to a point where
They
four of our
crash and then we have to
computers.
come up with something doing it.
Correct, yeah. So I would definitely recommend we keep that, but and any of this is subject to change, but kind of those outliers might be the easiest. But any questions on that? Clerk is the next section. As Mike already pointed out, wages is increased here. Or are being proposed to increase with benefits to match, otherwise it's pretty much the same. And you're looking at about a $6,000 increase there.
Workshops, conferences, and education, how? It looks like we only spent $90 this year.
Yeah, Lisa did not go to training this year because she looked at, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but the training that for clerks that she wanted to go to has some better classes for her next year. So she wanted to make sure she was getting the most for her money and postponed that this year.
Okay.
Is that fair? Okay.
That's crucial, that's something crucial that we provide our staff. I mean, it's.
Well, I just want to make sure that, I want to make sure we are actually spending the money and keeping our staff. So as long as you guys have individual plans every other year, that's great. I typically try to do the same thing, so.
Yeah, I'm huge on, if we have it in the budget for training, let's do it.
Well, we have to, just legislation changes and everything else, so.
Yes. Okay, so treasurer is the next section, same thing as clerk, and you're looking at about a little over $7,000 increase there. If you have any questions.
No, it's at 7. But there's more than that because you appropriate it from different different funds as well.
And that's wages and benefits, yeah, so. Excuse me, whenever wages increase, pension increases. And
No,
then-
I mean, I get that, but. You fund clerk's work from motor vehicle, you fund the clerk, part of the clerk's wages from whatever else, water and sewer, obviously, because they deal with that. So you're looking at increases across the board, not just 7, you're looking at what?
Total. Like here, clerk wages increase 5,200, treasurer increases 5,400. That's a wage line item alone. So I think what Mike is saying, what's the total across the budget?
You want it for each employee or total, Mike?
Well, we're gonna have to talk each employee at some point, whether it's now or tomorrow, but Again, I'm just pointing out that it's not 6 and 7, it's part of that, because that's the general fund portion of it, and there's gonna be others out of other funds.
Right.
Which have an increase in that as well. Outside contractor for treasurer, that's assuming what, like the audit and the financials and everything else that comes from that word.
That is also for the appreciation, depreciation reports that are prepared by outside contractors. And I'm hoping that that will go down. Because it was a little bit higher this year. Any other questions on that section?
Tools and supplies.
Yes.
And we use this house, the county does the tax rules for us. So they handle our property taxes, so that's an eligibility. And we have to keep that like $1,000, to mail them, to print them,
Oh, okay.
that's what that is.
Good, next one we can talk about, right? Buildings grants.
Yes. All right, so Village Hall grounds, we, for the most part, has stayed the same when it comes to the wages, supplies, things like that. There is a little bit of an increase for electric, just because we've continued to see increases there. And then we probably should focus on maybe the bottom, starting at 172, if you're on the Excel part where it talks about capital projects. So we would like to crack fill Pearl and newspaper parking lots at $5,000. This would be one of those items that if you guys said, no, we can't afford to do that this year, that we could remove. I wanted to talk to you guys about transfers out to local street. I put that recommended at 300,000. Last year, we did reduce that to 120,000, help get a couple capital projects done. Whatever you reduce that here, we'll then have to make sure to reduce our local street revenue by that portion as well. So this is something we can come back to, but you do have some room there. Just know that whatever we decide not to fund local streets, that just cuts into the street projects that we can do.
How are we doing in the local streets?
Like fund wise, you mean, or?
No, I'm talking about upkeep wise. I know we did.
We're doing really well on our local street upkeep. The biggest challenge we're going to be faced with is water and sewer, and then making sure that the street above that's replaced. But as far as taking care of our streets, we did quite a few projects this year, which helped and look really good. And overall, I think we're doing better on our streets than a lot of communities.
Yeah, we are.
Well, crack filling, obviously. It's important, but I think we need to seal those lots. That is a heck of a lot cheaper than coming in and milling those every 10 years. If we crack seal them and we do the fog coat or whatever we want to call it on those, that gets that tar layer back down over the aggregate, and it's gonna prolong the life of those. I would much rather, again, let's try to be proactive about it. If we have to say, let's fog it, or let's crack seal it and fog it, that's gonna save us. You know, what do we estimate the Farber parking lot at? So I mean, that thing's gonna have to be milled because we didn't seal it as we could have and maintain it and make it last longer. So it's gonna have to be milled all the way down. If we proactively crack fill it and fog it, it's gonna last a lot longer. Or at least it'll slow down the milling process.
And you're just asking for crack filling here?
Correct. I would have to get an estimate on fog seal for you guys if you wanted to add that. I mean, we just did the chip and fog seal, but just looking at that fog seal for all of that was 15,000. I mean, the parking lots are considerably less than that, so I mean, if I had to throw out a number, I would say not more than 5,000 more than that. But it really. But because if we don't, you would want to crack fill before you seal. So yeah, maybe we can increase that.
Because, I'm really talking about. I just walked, the Little League Park, we didn't do that when we milled. Obviously, the other, Bachmeyer Farmers, horrible, the library is horrible. We probably can salvage. Newspaper and Pearl if we fog it and get that sealed. Again. We want to maintain things, but we want to do it as fiscally responsible as we can. Again, if we spend 10,000 to do it, it's gonna buy us another 5 or 10 years to have a mill.
I mean, do you want to increase that to 15,000?
We do it for 10, don't we?
Yeah, I think probably 10 to 12 we could do it for.
Because again, it's just pushing those other projects closer up. It's
Sure. I mean, we could take $10,000 out of the transfers out to local.
I'll bump it to 12 and then we can see where we can always come back to it. I'm gonna leave it highlighted.
Why don't we,
Why don't you just take it right out of the local streets?
why don't you go from 300 to 290, why don't we just reallocate funds there?
Bill's down here saying the same thing you guys just thought that you
You're gonna
guys.
speak up, Bill.
I know, I don't know why this, I can say something, dude.
Yeah.
Come on, come on.
Yeah, I can't hear you all the way down there, Bill.
You got a mic.
Just because you have a loud shirt on.
Okay.
take it off.
No,
And just regarding maintenance, whatnot, I mean, is this pretty much you're considering this, just this building under the. build
Yeah, so we-
grounds and maintenance?
Yeah, that's my understanding. I'm sorry, for the building grounds.
Yes.
Yes, that is just this village office.
Sorry, and there's things that, we've done the roof, air handler, whatnot, we need to paint inside here at some point, and it's not just this room, the office is look rough, and it's understand, we've been in here almost 10 years now, this is a cold commercial building, it's probably time to maintain this and keep it nice. So at some point, we should budget for that.
And I think,
Lisa, what color are your office walls?
White,
not sure,
like
got too
this.
much junk in.
Hard work.
Yeah.
is that something you're wanting to propose to
It
add
would be
this
nice
year?
at
or-
some point, but again, you can notice it where it's a couple grand and it's gonna maintain it.
Right.
If you go through the back offices,
Put it down for next year.
gun belts and everything else, it's needed.
And we can see where we're at. So this year we had a little bit of a spike in grounds maintenance because the generator, I don't even remember what part it was died, and that was, I think, $6,000 some dollars. So we may have a little bit of room in that maintenance
Transfer
line.
switch or whatever.
Yeah, something like that. This year, knock on wood, that nothing else happens, but we might be able to squeeze some painting in.
It would be nice. Municipal street will go away, right? I mean, that's technically just a carryover from.
Yeah, I just have to list it because we had appropriations a couple years ago. But yes, that is gone. And then the transfers to DDA, that is so we collect in revenue or in general fund the revenues from the tax dollars. And that's the TIF payment to the DDA that we have to make. And then the transfers out to municipal building debt fund is our loan payment, the general fund portion for this building.
Okay, so the 60 is the TIF collection, and then the other quote 40 comes from township and schools and whatnot. Correct.
Correct, yes. And also, Mike, when we get a little bit, the debt funds, because they collect millage, have to pay a portion of that DDA TIF as well, which you'll see in the expenditures there as we go further along. Any questions about village hall grounds?
No.
Okay, attorney services. We have,
Well, like, yeah, because we're talking about local street. Are we settled on 290?
I left it highlighted in case
Because
we
we're
want to
still
come
okay.
back to it, so that when we get to local street, if you guys want to change or do something else. But I do have it at 290 right now.
Let's
If
just
you
remember
want to-
that. Because we didn't do a lot this year. But we have prided ourselves on our streets. So if we have to cut from somewhere, That's a little bit.
So the next section is attorney. And we've got audit fees at 15,000, attorney services at 20, which I bumped up a little bit. I don't even remember why they bumped that up. No, the attorney,
I can see two reasons. Number one, forensic audit, and then number two, the wastewater.
I know I did there
Yeah. and I
in
know it's-
wastewater, yes, significantly.
What do these audit fees represent?
Audit fees are our whole audit, so that's the general fund portion.
Okay.
And then the ordinance of the 2,500, so we pay Muni code to have upload all of our ordinances and they update them and everything. We did last year switch to, instead of paying for every time an ordinance change, we pay a flat fee and as many ordinances as we change. And we did that because we're gonna be bringing a lot of ordinances to you guys, so we'll save some money
Well,
doing
is that
it
what
that
you're thinking?
way.
Because doubling attorney services, correct? I mean, technically is what you're doing, so we decided as this 2-year board level that we're gonna have very minimal, meetings with attorneys, things like that, so is that necessary? A doubling of the attorney services?
So the attorney services this fiscal year budgeted at 32,500, I only bumped it up 5,000. We're projected to only spend 20,000 of that. If you guys wanna lower that, we can, that's up to you guys.
But
Cause we're projected to spend about a little over 10,000 in attorney services. So if you wanna reduce the 20 down,
Do you think that you should just want it because of the ordinances?
that's what I was trying to remember why I bumped that.
I think you should.
Normally I make a note.
No, I think you should because I think that you're hoping the next year you restructure the ordinance. So I think that's why you want to.
Yeah, and we do have them review pretty much all of the ordinance changes unless it's. I don't actually know when we wouldn't, unless it's like a typo or something when we're changing. It's up to you guys.
Well, if we're gonna increase that, then we should increase up with the revenues, the ordinance violate, but whatever the heck is it, right? I mean,
Ordinance and fines.
yeah, like if people are getting ticked off, we're hearing it, that we're not enforcing them, then we should be able to help pay for that. If we're gonna amend ordinances and follow ordinances, then we're probably gonna have to stick to them a little bit more. And if we have to go after people, I'm sorry, it is what it is, but we're gonna rewrite it for a reason. We've been pretty lackadaisical in going after people. We've talked about it, numerous houses and properties in this village for 2 years, and we haven't seen any movement on them. So I'm just saying we could make some of that back, but we have to. I'm not trying to do it as a funding mechanism, but if we're gonna recreate the ordinance, so we might as well follow it.
But that
Be
was the part
aggressive
that
with it.
it's challenging to get the monies, we don't have that recourse, because we had that dialogue about that.
Correct, so Dave has that, he was reviewing it, I'm not sure if you guys heard, his mother passed away, he did call me, he said, I've not forgot about you, he was dealing with that. I should have that from him anytime, and then there's a lot of ordinance changes that'll come behind that, but that does set a fee. And I kind of, when we were at revenues, talked about that we're dropping this because historically that's what we've seen. I'm hoping that with this new ordinance, we'll actually see that kind of come back where it used to be as far as revenues. But because this ordinance process is new, I don't have historical data to identify what those revenues will be. And I would rather err on the side of caution, because if those don't come in, then we're eating into our fund balance because those revenues are lower. If you guys want to adjust them, I certainly can. I would recommend, if you want to adjust them, that you not go above the 12,000 we have budgeted this fiscal year for those. But that is 3,000 more than what I have in it right now.
Yeah, I mean, we shouldn't get gun ho on wanting to elect ordinances, but there are properties that do need to be attended to or be addressed, yes. I'm okay with $9,000-10,000. I think that's probably fairly reasonable. I mean, that variance on 2.16.
We've seen our attorney services go up quite a bit in the past couple of years, correct? I mean,
We've also been a lot more active to wastewater and forensics, so hopefully those.
There's also been a lot of corrections. Generator.
Generac. Yeah.
well, hopefully this stuff slows down.
Yeah.
I absolutely prefer to not be utilizing their services all the
Do you
time.
want to drop attorney services back to 15 and match this year? From the 20, and that would be exact same budget?
I would say yes, because anything we're gonna go on is in the wastewater treatment plant fund. That's gonna be our big fight. At least this year.
I keep it at 20. But simply because of the wastewater treatment.
But that'll, I have that accounted
Well,
for.
what part of it
in-
isn't it?
No, so that'll be in the sewer fund.
I'm so sorry.
No, you're okay. Yeah, I'm fine dropping it to 15. I have no concerns about that at all. And I'll watch it. If we get to a point that we're getting close, we'll let you guys know.
Because of sewer funds, because of the wastewater treatment. That's
Correct, yes.
Where we at so far with them, 10,000?
So I'm projecting that we'll spend just over 10,000 this fiscal year with them.
We moved back to 15.
Okay, I got that.
Yeah.
Attorney. Any other questions on attorney? Depot is the next section, and this is an increase in wages because there's some work that needs to be completed over there. So this is just DPW wages, spending more time, and they're paid where they actually work. So we wanted to account for that. And then if you guys have questions there, let me know. It's otherwise pretty standard capital project requests, and I don't have either of these things in here because you guys need to let me know what the priority is, but we do need to, we're having some foundation issues at the depot. And this will probably, what I anticipate, be a phased project, but we need to get some structural engineers to look at this to see what repairs can be made to fix the depot foundation. So that's where the 16,500 comes in. We're hoping that that would fund engineering and at least some temporary repairs, and then phase 2 would be next year's budget. And whatever, we would have an engineer's estimate to know what that amount would be.
For historical context, because I don't remember, the village purchased these buildings.
I don't know, Gary.
Absolutely not, no, it was acquired. Connie and the historical society, all those brought it and rehabbed it, whatever. We paid to maintain it. It was if it ever went quote defunct or whatever, it fell in the village's hands, it's on our property, so we took over all ownership of it, we let them utilize it. But again, it's one of those gifts that keep on giving with the maintenance. Fortunately, and it needs a roof badly.
Yes. So the other thing, the deck needs to be replaced as well. The boards are starting to pop up and fall apart. And that's the 7,000. It needs a new roof and new windows, which are not even in this current fiscal year. It's gonna be in next year's request. We definitely have some maintenance needs.
It is, it's gonna be not cheap, but the foundation obviously is critical.
And that's why we put the foundation here, because if we lose the foundation, we lose the structure.
Is there any leaks in that roof? That we know of?
Not that I'm aware of.
That's my fear, I just don't wanna get to it. So that's your increase in like the wages and whatnot, we're gonna try to do a little maintenance and
Yes.
see what we can do with it.
Yes, we're gonna try to do some maintenance in-house as much as possible, but we have to have the structural engineer come in for the foundation, because right now, so I don't know if you guys recall, last year DPW did some repairs to it to kind of hold us over and get us through, but really, we are not structural people and we don't want to make things worse or not fix it properly. I don't know if you guys want to come back to those amounts or if there's something you feel strongly should be included there of those two requests.
I mean, you've talked to the engineers about it, this is their estimate.
So theirs is a little bit less than this to look at it. I have no idea what repairs are gonna cost. We tried to go a little bit higher to see what we could get done this year. Because we were anticipating that they may recommend we need to do something in the interim until we can do the permanent fix.
And 23-24 is gonna be huge, it's gonna be bicentennial, so that thing is gonna be utilized, we have to do something with it, but again, we can't continue to keep giving to the entities. We've got historical society, we're gonna talk about the Boy Scout Academy next, I mean, we really have to start to tighten up
Well,
where we're funding on
I was just trying to look through my notes for Danielle, you know, our priority list on our goals and stuff like that.
Yes.
Where is that? You know how it goes to high, medium, low, it's kind of all random, do we have it in that order from high to medium to low?
So let me look
And
at,
I say, because that was something we have said that we want to use as our guidance as well on our decision.
On our budget stuff.
And I know I have it, but mine is kind of all over the place, it's not in a chronological or numerical
So-
order.
objective 12 that you guys approved was complete necessary facility repairs, which is ongoing, but sub to that. You have the library roof repairs or replacement, which is priority 1. And then you have depot repairs, including foundation, roof and windows, which are priority 3. And then Boy Scout building repairs, which is a priority 3. And that's specifically under the facility items, and your priorities are 1 to 5, 1 being the highest.
Okay, so they're in the middle,
Yes.
the Boy Scout and the depot, but I think a valid point is made regarding the bicentennial. I mean, that's a very valid point.
And we can I can leave that highlighted, we can come back to it as well.
We should revisit that.
Okay, so moving forward to Boy Scout building. Again, this is pretty much standard. We did bump up, or not standard, but the same. We did bump up building grounds repairs and maintenance from 1,000 to 5,000. And that was again, our plan was to bump that up and see if there's some way that we can partner with the Boy Scouts where maybe we can fund the materials and they could help volunteer to do some work and get some maintenance and things taken care of there, was the intent of increasing that.
They're still using the building
Yes,
on a
they,
regular basis.
So that would go along with our goal, the 5 grand. That's.
yeah, and it's not
It's not,
gonna fix everything,
No, but it's still
the
going
intent
towards
was
the goal.
What,
Correct.
do you have any like idea what the improvements need?
I don't, so we were going to, because this year they had $1,000, we did talk to the Boy Scouts, one of their big things that they needed was a parking pad for their trailer. We did that in-house this year with $1,000 or a little less in material and some wages. Our idea, if you guys approve this, is we'll meet with them and say, okay, what needs to be done? What can we do within this budget? How can we work together to get these things done? Or again, we know that's not going to check off any major repairs or big things, but at least put something towards it, because $1,000 a year is not, I mean, the cost of things today, it's not very much.
Because windows aren't that old on it, I don't believe, we did those.
Yeah, my understanding is that wasn't too long ago. And then the Boy Scouts funded a HVAC unit in there. They replaced that and fully paid for that. I did go in there to one of their meetings. I don't know, my days all meshed together a few months back, and they do take pretty good care of it, but it is old.
I like your 5,000 there.
Okay. Municipal improvement is the next section, and the couple things that we have here, Christmas decorations, we budgeted 3,000 this year for Christmas decorations, and we're requesting to bump that to 6,000. This is specifically intended to help the DDA with the swags. I don't know that we need that though, Mike, do we? Because didn't we DDA get the price with the 3,000 this year and the money DDA budgeted? So I think we could actually probably drop that. I don't know if you wanna leave something there in case, yeah,
Yeah, I wouldn't double it.
but I would maybe drop it back to the 3,000 if you guys are okay with that. So then 2 requests, wayfinding entryway signs at 55 and then phase 1, and these came from the capital improvement plan. I don't know if these are high enough priority for you guys, but the entry signs are 55,000, phase 1 is 176. Excuse me. The last part here is transfers out to DDA. And I do need some feedback from you guys here. So this current fiscal year, the DDA, we discussed, we did a $15,000 transfer. And the intent of that was to help offset the DPW wages that are billed to DDA. That will be reduced slightly. And I don't know if you guys recall, Brandon came to you guys about the tax payments. So the village would have to, I say reduce, we're still ultimately paying that much, but we're paying the tax bill and then reducing this to make up that total 15. The DDA is requesting $25,000 this year in appropriations to them. 15,000 would be for the DPW wages, and then the other portion of it is to help fund some of their projects that they have lined out within their budget, which we can look at when we get further. You'll see all of their items. The other thing that is not included in this budget, because it kind of came after I had finished all of this, is the DDA would like to ask the village if you guys would consider funding a portion, and I'm not sure, and Mike correct me if I'm wrong, because I know, or James, either of you are both on DDA. I'm not sure that they ever set an exact amount, but they would like the village to consider paying a portion of the decorative streetlights that need to be replaced. I know you guys know about the one that fell out here, half.
About half, yeah.
You guys could fund this through general fund, or you could fund it through major streets because it is within the right of way. And just keep in mind that either way will cut into your other projects in those funds. If you're going to do the streetlights, I would recommend it come out of major because there's a little bit more wiggle room in major than there is in general fund. But if you guys want to do an appropriation of the 25,000 that's requested, that would need to come from general fund. It's not a qualified major street budgetary item. I recommended 20,000 here because of just general overall where we're at with the budget, but ultimately it's up to you guys.
So the lights are being examined. There's a possibility that it can be sent out for repair, but that's probably unlikely. We'll have to replace the whole unit. And the big portion of the replacement is not actually the light unit, but it's the base that it sits on. So those need to be elevated so that they shed water, and then the poles re-erected.
Correct. So the quote for the poles without the concrete base came in at just under 60,000.
60.
Yes, it would, exactly is $59,840.32.
And that's for how many lights?
14.
14. Oh, and it's not just the downtown, but you're talking the 223.
Maybe she may have done 16. I don't know what she did.
Okay, I thought the quote was for 20.
Oof.
Should only be 14. We don't need the 5. We did the 5 lights done at 223 with the TE grant. We need the 2 here, and then there's the single heads in between. So we need 2 5 heads and 12 single heads.
And you're
So there's
suggesting.
16 poles. Yeah, that's what's 14. Yep.
And
And then we can take a chunk out of what we're doing or what the design committee proposed, and that's what would be the meet in the middle. We would have to cut some of the design elements that we wanted to do this year. We would help offset those costs. The recommendation was from the board that, any street light in town is pretty much like we redid the Cobra heads and replaced them with LEDs. It fell back on us to replace those. a pole gets knocked down or something everywhere else in town, it's gonna fall back on the village to replace that. Yes, they're obviously more expensive, they're decorative. But again, it's part of the enhancement and part of, a sort of meet in the middle will contribute because it's the above and beyond sort of decorative element behind it. That's the request from the DDA board.
So you're looking at getting all new lighting fixtures? Or just the poles?
Just the base or the entire pole itself. It's not the Sternbergs that are out there. It's very similar. It's much like we have on line 223, just black. It's very similar fluted pole, but a little bit cheaper. But yeah, the hard part is going to be raising those bases so we don't have the rust issues.
And where were you suggesting again, Danielle? You were saying it could come from this or this.
So major
Major.
Which South Lane is it?
is
Yeah, that
major,
makes
yeah,
sense.
that's why I said major.
That's why the major, gotcha. Major street.
Yeah, which is, if you guys want to help fund that, I would take it out of that fund, just because it is it's a little bit healthier than general fund, and you have a lot of requests in general fund.
And going back to these transfers to DDA, we've got further ones coming down the pipe too that are proposed. Again, it continues to snowball. We give 10 towards economic development, correct? Or 10 towards the economic development portion of that comes out of the village's quote general fund.
Correct, which is a little bit further down.
Further down, then you're talking about 50.
And it's
for village.
10% of Laura's wages is what's funded. The total amount is 21,685.
In the economic development portion.
Correct.
Okay,
That's
so
including, that's the whole thing.
Yes, that's all of it.
So, I'm trying to wear both hats, but, and you're talking about 15,000 for the things that the DPW are doing downtown. You're talking about just that the DPW already contributes out of the TIF. You're talking 48, whatever, 49% fringe benefits that we're at. Again, it is a challenge to do anything above and beyond that position. The physical things, the events, those all have to be self-funded. You literally cannot do anything with that position because that position is legally utilizing the TIF collection. Plain and simple. And I'm a strong believer being on the DDA board. I didn't see the benefits to it, but again, we have to cut somewhere, and I'm not seeing the growth, the improvements that we're trying to do, that we're utilizing all of this funding towards. I'm not seeing the benefit from it, and I can't continue to say we're going to continue to shell more and more and more when our budget is quote this tight towards the DEA. As much as I wish I could, I don't think it's the responsible thing to do.
Well, the board is the one that requested Laura to do the Thursdays. And the Thursdays are very time consuming. They're very good events, but they're time consuming. And if the board would like something to be done differently with the economic value of it, then the board, DDA board, needs to make that decision. But not yours, the DDA
Right.
board has made a decision for the first Thursdays. You guys are gonna have to make some decisions of where you want to go with some of that.
I agree.
It can't be, you want, and Mike, I'm not saying it you directly.
No, I get it.
It can't be both. Something has to give.
You're
You
right.
can't do it all.
You're right.
And we're not gonna be, as we well know, we can't do all of this budget, and we're gonna, in my opinion, we're gonna need to go through our list of what we prioritize. It's why we spend the time to prioritize.
And that's why I didn't just want to stick on the library like. it's
I
already
understand
go
totally.
through it.
I do. I don't know, you made a very good point on that, but, so we can't say that the DDA, is doing some things.
It absolutely is, but is the bang worth the buck? I'm not sure I can justify
That's
that right
where,
now.
going back to the board, a discussion maybe.
It's hard to quantify
It is.
the return on investment that the TDA.
Has been for how
provides.
many years, Mike?
Yeah, we've had,
It has been.
kicked the ball, trying to get answers and feedback.
Mhm. But I do know that, we don't need to go all into everything there, but I think we would all agree that it does, make, a great lifestyle for people in Blissfield
It does, but again,
at a cost.
we at what cost, and
I
what
understand.
do we cut in order to
I
have the field, the events and things like that, to me, and I can't
And
justify
people
it.
come to expect that.
You're right, and that's the problem. That is the problem, is they come to expect it. And they come to expect a lot of things out of, you know, based on, yes, we want a thriving economic corridor and whatnot, I'm trying not to change it off here. But it's become where it's expected and not utilized, or it's not given back in kind by these business owners, by whatever else. So again, it should all fall back on the village and the taxpayers.
As far as the 20,000 goes, does anybody have any input on that?
I'm okay with the 20,000.
I think 15.
17.5.
Well, if we're gonna fund the lights out of major, then I'm okay with 15. So
Okay. The lights weren't even addressed, like you said, on the budget.
Correct.
Yeah, so they have a bunch of resale.
Good point.
yeah,
Okay,
that just came out
Okay.
during the festival.
good point.
All right, so we're going on 2 hours. Do we want to complete this first half? Do you think we can get through it?
Yes.
That's what I was gonna ask you guys,
Keep
it's
moving.
up to you guys.
Keep going, keep going.
Is everyone okay? We'll get through general and then we'll call it and resume tomorrow. Okay.
Okay, police department is next. At the very top, you will see I have two highlighted sections here.
Sure.
Green on the left is the requested and then the yellow is the recommended. So the police department currently is the 6 full-time officers with that and a part-time. They're requesting the part-time be moved to full-time. So the green is showing you what that cost would be for a full-time. The recommended, and I want you guys to understand, I completely understand where they're coming from with that request. I don't disagree. Financially is where I struggle, again, because of all the things we've already talked about. And I just don't know that this is the year to increase that. Ultimately, it's up to you guys. I wanted you to be able to see those side by side so that you can see the difference. I also want you guys to keep in mind when you're looking at this, that this will tie back directly to the reimbursements of the 95,000, which is going to offset the wages and benefits for the SRO. But I have to include those expenses here because they're expensed out. You guys
Like the
let me know.
library.
Yes, that should be for all funds. I mean, again, if you guys tell me move it to full-time, I get that, it's just,
So does that bring up, if we move that officer full-time, then are we at our full staffing levels where we should be
we're
for 24-hour protection?
correct. That is why chief wants to move that from part-time to full-time. And because it's incredibly hard to recruit a part-time officer. So right now, we are down one officer and the part-time. And no prospects at this time
Yeah, right now we have 5 full-time, 1 part-time,
in the SRO currently,
and the SRO.
yes.
Okay, that's current. And then,
And what they're, the only change they're requesting would be that the part-time go to full-time.
and that way they would have the 6 full-time. Plus the SRO. Gotcha, okay.
Yes.
Plus. All right, I'm with you. Okay, thank you.
Is that something that we can wait for just one more year, that full time? Making that guy full time?
And again, that's, I want you guys to understand, like, I completely get the request, but that would be this, I just don't know that this is the year based on the projects and the needs that we have.
I'd like to make, oh, so sorry, go ahead, Jerry.
My only concern is the village residents voted on a full-time 24-hour police department. And I think there's a lot of people in the village that think we have 24-hour protection 7 days a week. And I'm not so sure that happens.
Yes, we definitely have gaps, especially when we're
I was
shorthanded.
being polite.
Well, I agree with Jerry. I think we need to have a 24/7. So I'd be in favor of moving that to full time. Does this mean that there'll be a 3% increase in this department too?
Correct, everybody was included in the wage, except the library, I guess.
Well, who is the part-time now, or is this just there, but there's?
It's open right now.
Okay, that's what I was
Yeah, it's
thinking.
vacant.
Okay.
So we have a full-time, so Matt, Officer Hunkley is our SRO now, because as you guys know, Dave retired again. And, so Matt is SRO, which he'll start with the school resource officer next week. He has still been working on the road, so we'll have one officer because Matt's moving to the SRO, and then the part-time that are vacant.
But when Officer Hunkley is not working at the school, because that's not a full 8-hour shift, or is that a full 8 hour?
It is a full
It is a
8-hour
full
shift.
I could not.
So
Okay.
he will, as a full-time employee, be able to work in the summers for the village.
Right, but not during the school year.
Correct.
Gotcha. I was wondering about the portable speed signs in the trailer for the equipment versus the officer. My impression, and I won't disagree with the guys who are saying with the 24/7 coverage. On the line 28 of the Excel thing, the portable speed sign is $3,500 and the trailer is $4,000. And for $7,500, I mean, I know that doesn't take the place of an officer per se, but I think that one of the things that I'm hearing is the speed issue in town. And if that could compensate for some of an officer having something like that in place. I don't know. I'm just throwing out some thoughts.
Two separate things, right? That's not-
So I'll give you my 2 cents, and Chief and I talked a little bit about this after the last meeting.
Right. Yes.
And nothing against those speed signs. But what happens is that maybe the first couple of times people are like, oh, look at that, I should slow down. But then if there's not an officer there, they typically don't. They continue speeding. Some of them use it as a marker to see how fast they can speed. I don't think that is necessarily the solution.
Okay.
I do think that having that out in the public may give the appearance that we're working on it. I don't know if that's the best way to say it, but I don't think it fixes the real problem.
Okay. No,
If that
hey,
makes sense.
it does, and if that's what you guys, that's what you know, and that's what he knows, and he's like, nope.
I like them too, and when I thought we were talking
Yeah.
two different things, I thought, one was like, they're kind of pole mounted now and permanent fixture out by the school or whatever.
Oh, no,
Again, that,
No moving them
Yeah,
around.
this is the portable, so that we could kind of.
Trailer
Yeah.
for those, or a trailer for?
So the trailer is actually for equipment for.
Oh, I thought it was for the sign.
Yeah, it's separate from the sign. It would be, so that the police department would have all of their stuff loaded up. So when they go, because they're required to do like taser training, to do their firearms training, they could have everything in this trailer, take that and then be ready to go. In any situation or training or anywhere they have to go with that stuff.
Okay.
The portable speed sign it's just the sign itself, and that's like a little trailer mounted sign that you haul to whatever location and.
This might be me becoming their parents, but. I think people just drive erratically everywhere. I commute down to Toledo every single day. I pass Mike on 223. If you said you cruise at 55, you will have a lineup behind your car.
You can't go
20 deep.
53.
On 223, 55.
Go ahead and do it, but you shouldn't. You gotta be at least 60.
That's what's going on in town.
I know.
That's
I know.
The same thing.
I drove all over this country this summer and it's wild out there. And so I think whatever's going on with speeds is,
That's not gonna help.
Okay. I just think.
So that's cool.
Unless you're gonna actually put somebody up there and just write tickets and become a well-known.
Well, maybe
established
having that
speed
officer, having that potential officer on the ground, will give us more coverage in order to start reinforcing those, and maybe we get a little more aggressive. With the fine, and that helps out the library as well, but I'm just saying, I've got the past 10 years that I've requested these, and I have requested these portable speed signs, because we used to have them. I guess it's what's the benefit? Yes, on 223, probably for people coming through town that don't actually live here. But yeah, if it, as much as I wish we could afford a couple out of school just to remind those kids. Right. But sooner or later you get complacent from it, and You know, it does literally becomes, okay, what can I make this thing clock at, which I, you know, we've all have done. So, you know, I would much rather have the feet on the ground and, you know.
The one question I have here is at one point we did have a crossing guard. Is that still, I don't know if I saw
We
that.
took that out
Yeah, that was,
a couple years ago.
yeah, I think-
Has replaced that, we have.
There.
yeah, and the SRO does monitor the schools now as well with traffic and all of that, so I'm not sure, Dave last year was constantly.
Yeah, I mean, I dropped off Sam every single day. I saw Dave in the parking lot. All right,
So while you guys are kind of in that section, their capital request, we have $2,000 for a desktop computer replacement. It is a little bit more costly for the PD computers because of all of the information that they have to have in the lead requirements there. A laptop, currently Chief does not have, he's using his own laptop, so we really should get him one of those. Again, you guys could remove or change those, but I kind of put those in there. Portable speed signs trailer, completely up to you guys. The in-car camera system, I have $6,000 here. That would be to purchase it on a 5-year lease payment. So you would pay the $6,000 for 5 years, and that would replace all the cameras in the vehicles. We currently do not have cameras in the vehicles because I want to say about a year ago, they went out, and the cost of them, we didn't have the money to replace them.
We just have their
They-
body cams.
Correct, which some departments have moved to the body cams, but it does not always, if like the officer's driving, it doesn't always capture what an in-car camera would. So those are the things I need to know what you guys feel is a priority and should be funded here.
well, what about the police car lease?
Thank
Increasing $22,000.
I was gonna go back to that because you guys kind of jumped, so I was gonna try to stay there and then think about that.
Well, I mean, if I have to, like, it's 22 or 6. Right,
Okay, so we can talk about that. So the police car lease. So as you know, the motor vehicle fund, because I've shared this numerous times, is not in great shape. So this year, and even last year, we started working on this. We pulled out wages. We did that this year. So this year, and we had bumped it from 30 to 35 in the current fiscal year. We looked at their expenditures. Right now, the PD to replace a vehicle every 3 years and to cover their vehicle maintenance and their fuel costs, it's $57,000. That's literally the motor vehicle fund making no money off police, just covering their expenses. That's why I'm recommending that. Right now, we are running a deficit in the motor vehicle when it comes to the police department. And my understanding is that the police department used to be in the general fund and we struggled to pay for their vehicles because of the general fund. So they moved it to the motor vehicle, and I think to be like fair, because it's shared with DPW, they should be paying their portion. Obviously, you guys can make any changes, but that's where that came from.
The outfitting is what kills us. I mean, yes, they put a ton of wear and tear, those things idle a lot, but it's the outfitting that, you know, we get a pretty good deal on the car. We're paying $10,000-$15,000 to re-outfit that every 3 years. That's what's killing us.
Right, the last
It's the
one was
computers, it's the
almost
equipment, it's, you know,
18,000.
So it has to increase. I mean, that's just, those are old school numbers, and it's not with the times. It's pre-laptop, it's everything that runs electronically in those vehicles.
All right, so if you don't fund the portable sign, the trailer, or the in-car camera, you've got $147,000 increase in this fund. On this police line item,
How much savings?
147. That is taking into account the full-time officer. And the $57,000 in the lease, the $22,000 increase.
I would like to shoot for the full-time officers, but I don't even we can't even guarantee that we can get two to come here. So I'd say try for it, but again, the people do want the 24/7 coverage, and that's what I heard continuously. And then I, said 100 times, I'll make cuts somewhere else before I cut the safety of the village.
But so essentially we have to, I mean, I'm not trying to be smart.
Yeah.
So if we're saying as a board, we want the 24/7 coverage, then we have to say, okay, something else has to give. There is no answer, because we can't say, well, what if nobody gets there? Well, what if we do? We have to have the money there. Danielle, going back to our list, where does public security, is that somewhere on our list of priorities? Where was that on there?
Let me go back to.
I don't think we ever,
I don't think that was on there, was
Well,
it?
that's why I could
Those
recall.
were like,
That's
major.
capital.
Capitals, yeah.
But then but no.
But you do
we still have
say,
something about,
yeah, we do, but I don't know if public safety was ever, that is a good point though, like.
I mean, yeah,
It's got.
I thought we had something in there for the wellness of our citizens or something of that nature.
you do have, under promote efficient and effective municipal operations and service. Objective number 1, accomplish community goals and objectives without cutting services, i.e. police force, plowing, mosquito spraying, quality water, brush and leaf pickup.
And what priority was that?
That was objective 1 and it was ongoing priority.
Well, there we go.
Okay.
So that answers
That's
that
it
answers my
right there.
question.
And, you know, as much as I wish we could have the cameras in the car and whatnot, those do provide good information, you know, if they go to court or whatever else. We have to make do with what we can afford, and that's just,
Yes.
sorry.
But the laptop obviously is necessary. He should not be using his own laptop.
Right,
Yes, I do agree with that. And then the desktop is again getting into that cycle of not being, all of a sudden 4 of them have to be replaced.
so do we add those two? And then next, the portable speed sign. The trailer
And
and
then,
the in-car cams.
Well, what's this new equipment, 8,000?
so that is for their regular equipment replacement. So
Okay.
their ammunition, their tasers, their right. That's just
It's
kind
going
of
from
their,
30,000 down to 8,000.
we budgeted for the new weapons this current fiscal year, which has that included. So it's going back down to its normal kind of operating cost there.
Thank you.
And the weapons have the mounted camera on them too.
Right, when
The
they
new
go.
weapons, yes. DPW is the next section. And this is, I think, increased like $1,500
Yeah,
here.
the big one, capital projects, the DPW facility study engineering, obviously this has been talked about for 20 years. What is this council's intention? I mean, as much as I would love to see that site moved. Again, that is like $1 million plus project. I don't know what why we would engineer for it when we don't even have a cool potential site. I mean, if we were talking about maybe ARPA and properties or, you know, out at school like I talked about before, but it seems like the cart's kind of before the horse on engineering, something that we don't even know where it would potentially be.
We talked to the engineers about this and we need to do some work for the lab building at the wastewater treatment plant. And we were gonna try to incorporate this together into one project to see if there was any way that we could make a like dual or shared facility.
On the wastewater treatment plant site.
Yes, and it would look at potential sites or options too. It's up to you guys. Since I started, this has been something that's been talked about. It was put into the capital improvement plan last fiscal year for this year, and that's why that's in there. It's completely up to you guys.
And
I
this
think
would be
that
the
was-
general fund portion, thered be a sewer fund portion as
Correct.
well.
I think last year at this time, though, we thought maybe there was a piece of property coming available.
Yes, which is still in the works. I have a few concerns about the size of that. Based on talking to Brent. But I am still working on that and I'm,
More than the wastewater treatment plant site, which is.
well, I have concerns with that site.
The wastewater plant.
Yes.
Yeah,
we're talking about the others.
So
Yeah.
maxed out on the wastewater plant.
Yeah, that's my biggest
That doesn't make sense.
concern with this, and I even talked to the engineer, I have no idea where this would go.
Not there.
Because the idea is to get it out of where it's at, correct? And I'm not sure where it goes that we, because I think if we're going to do it, we need to plan for the future. So we approved for a back truck, I have no idea where DPW is gonna put that, and that's gotta be inside, they're already maxed out, and they do an excellent job of organizing and squeezing all that in like weird little angles and now, but they're definitely, they need more space if we're gonna look at this, and we need to make sure that they've got room for the future.
Yeah, cause we got crap out of the old pool building, we've got stuff where the old recycling. Center was, that they do minimize or utilize every little bit of space that they potentially can, so yeah, I would say. That's why I think that property is something to look at and continue dialogue.
Yeah, and we are still, it's just been kind of slow.
Do we want to fund a portion of this? And maybe not start the study, but start the funding portion?
That would make more sense to me, and I'd say this is a carryover for, the next. Year or two when we say when we do something, but
What amount are you thinking?
Oh, 5,000. Does that get us started?
Of the 50 you're saying?
Of the 15,
Get you a phone call,
It's yeah, phone call.
$5 grand.
You're talking line 320, you guys?
yes.
Okay.
everything else, I mean, it's needed. It's just,
Yeah, it's a-
continued repair, replace, whatever.
I know those guys out there, they make do and. I don't know how they do it sometimes.
No, they do a really good job of making their stuff last. And the airless sprayer and the walk behind blower are gonna be carried forwards just because we weren't gonna be able to get those purchased before this fiscal year end.
Propose some brooms.
Oh, because they didn't follow the downtown. In the morning, then they'd be out, it's just a joke.
I am going with them.
So engineering.
Snow blowing in the morning, right?
Engineering department is,
This is a new line item, right?
yes, it's a new line item. We've not really had, we talked about this, we've not really had it in general fund, but we've had some things come up and we've just squeezed it in, but to accurately track it, which has been our whole thing the last year, we put this here. I had it at 10,000 just for miscellaneous. Again, I have no historical information because we've not tracked it. Initially, I put it at 10,000. I did get an estimate from them regarding the river erosion engineering. And they've got it in 10 total phases. And they're saying that phase 1 through 5 should be completed together, which is $43,650. The engineering has to be done in order to qualify the village for grant funding.
How expansive does that go? Is that like village wide to village wide? Is that just a
Yeah.
park?
No, that is the river along various sections
The
throughout.
dam removal, I mean, all that kind of thing.
So it's looking at that whole area by the dam, and right after the dam, it's looking at the area by DPW, the park, and then up here at Walnut and the Lane, and it looks at as well.
But not the whole bank all the way through now.
No,
It's
it's
portions.
not- it's portions, yes,
So like behind my house continues to erode and it's just the banks falling in.
that is included.
Okay. And we can get grant money to repair that, because every year I'm losing bank.
We are,
Well,
our intention is to try to get grant money.
Start funding California.
Let's take that 50,000 and fix the bank.
Well, that's not gonna come close.
That'll be a start.
Yeah.
That's
And
the
we have to
engineering
do
department.
something, I mean, we're losing the park, we're losing.
We've talked about, go back to your little numbers there. Where does this fit in our goals?
Absolutely.
I mean, priorities are always shifting and this definitely needs attention.
Yes, it definitely does.
Plus, there are grants for this, so. If we get this accomplished, we could probably get a large portion funded through grants.
So objective 11, river erosion project to slow or stop erosion, priority 1.
Okay, here we go.
And keep in mind, this is only the first 5 phases of
Yes.
10.
Yes.
But that's probably all we could get done in 1 year as well. So I had them send me over timeframes, so then we would be able to budget next year to continue. And we will partner with the Riverways and Watershed as much as possible. They have a plan that they're willing to amend to include Blissfield, which would potentially save us some money down the road too.
Well, there was that, through the parks with Maya, I think you were included on that email regarding the trees.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, everybody downstream from us, pretty much to Monroe, I mean, it's literally. You know, it's a problem all the way down, it's just compounded.
Okay, so we want to leave that at the 50.
Yes.
The next section is rubbish and recycling, which is
It's just increasing $1,000.
outside contractor for trash services is the only thing that increased there, and that's for all of our dumpsters in our various locations. Planning commission, this is actually decreasing, mostly because the planning commission miscellaneous, we had the funding for the master plan, which is nearing completion, but we've reduced what we've spent this year on that. Any questions there? Zoning administrator, this is part of what Stacy does, part of her wages up or an administrative assistant, but this is the zoning related items. And this is being decreased by, I think, $15. So pretty much the same there. Any questions?
No.
Economic development, we briefly talked about this. And this is the portion of the DDA Main Street manager's wages that the village pays for her work with economic development village-wide. And benefits, and then there's a little bit of printing and publishing there. And then. Oh, the telephone is the CEDAM fellows. Phone.
Okay. It's still a decrease.
Well, going back to economic development, it used to be 10,000. It wasn't 10%, it wasn't benefits, it wasn't all the stuff that. This is inflated into it. It was, here's 10,000, will contribute towards economic development. And again, once again, it's shuffling more and more towards that.
So it's been that way since the budget when I started. I could go back, I'm sure you're not wrong, Mike, but that, so I just continue.
He's right, he's right, it was a flat 10, and it was just a flat 10.
Yep. And again, things where we weren't told when they were moved into different funding mechanisms that we weren't informed of or that we may have just missed, but the intent was 10, you know, just
The
flat.
intent was 10,
Yes, and then again, when you're looking at fringe benefit ratio, that's now you're looking at another 5, so it's just compounds.
Do you want to leave that though? It definitely would negatively impact the DDA.
It has to be there, but I do think that, as we kind of alluded to,
Be careful.
DDA needs to have a very hard discussion of what you want your objectives
You're right.
to be. And if you want to continue where you are, great, then we cannot say anything about the economic development / portion.
And how is health insurance half the wages?
Health insurance is ridiculous.
Well, we have pension too, and we have, you know, but
Well, no, it's $5,500.
we have very high fringe benefit ratio. It's always been 45 to 49%. I mean, that again, that's a benefit we have to remind too. They have, we do pretty well with providing them insurance. They don't do it, pension, which is still it's sort of unheard of. We may have to revisit that down the line. That's something, as long as I've been on council, I think most of the council have agreed that we've tried to take care of our employees in that way. I mean, we may not be able to pay them the best, but we're trying to meet a bill, find them good.
Well, the
benefits.
compensation study alludes to the quality of benefits and
Yeah,
things like that on there.
Putting our health benefits. I mean, that's gotta come from like an employee survey, but. If we're paying for premium health and they're not taking advantage of it, are we overpaying? Like, would we be better off fully funding a high deductible plan?
You have a high deductible.
yeah.
And it's based on, marital status, age, I mean, just all that stuff. So it's actually come back down recently with newer hires than what we've had in the past. I mean, well, technically been cheaper, but as rates continue to increase, it's.
Cause yeah, what's our individual out of pocket went up this last year? Cause it's insurance is super complicated. I learned more. I feel like Lisa can explain it better, but. So last year Blue Cross Blue Shield had an increase, but they said, well, we kept our increase down by increasing all the deductibles. Which then comes out of the employees, right?
I think it was like $5,000 or something at least.
Because
Yeah,
that-
it was more than that.
Yeah, because a family is
I
12,000.
think it was individually.
It is a high deductible.
$5,000 deductible.
And then we participate in the HRA program, which is actually helps reduce our premium for insurance. But then we pay out anything that's claimed for that, and we currently are at 12% utilization on that. Which I think this year will be up a little bit because the employees are paying out more, just the economy in general. Employees that probably used to not submit $20 are now submitting that because it does make a difference in today's economy. But I agree, they are high. That is pretty typical across municipalities that pay that. Right now, our employees don't contribute, and all of the employees will tell you, I've been very bad in telling them, like, I don't know how much longer that's going to be the case. And we have last year, we looked at switching from an HRA to an HSA and funding that, and then having the employees put in the HSA money instead of the village. So there are some other options, but I've tried to keep this in the budget, and my goal, until you guys direct me otherwise, or I can't, is to do that as long as possible to be competitive.
Yeah, it
with
does
others.
lend itself to being a competitive benefit.
It's always on the back burner. I know we've had like some administration changes in the past, but it's always looked at every year or two.
Yeah, in fact, you guys will be seeing that probably the first meeting in November, because our renewal will come on January 1, or really we'll renew before that, but effective January 1.
Okay.
Recreation is in here only because we had some money in there a couple of years ago, so I'm required to report it. Well, I kind of lied or misspoke there, sorry. And we did the $3,000 appropriation. We did the budget amendment for that to help pay for the helmets a couple meetings ago now this last year. But otherwise, there's nothing there, which is the same as last year. Pool is the next section, and this is pretty much the same, except for your capital projects. So we had initially funded the donation money. We've spent some of that, and it's got the amount there that is specifically has to be used on that. So that amount can't change because it is specific to the pool, and that's the 79. And then the two additional requests would be a pool diving board. So last summer, the pool diving board broke in half. We replaced it with the old diving board from the old pool. It is still working. We would just like to get one in stock so that if something happens to it, we can, same as last year, DPW will get out there and change it and we'll move forward. And that's what the quote for that came in. Sidewalk to the pump house would run from the double gate that is by the splash pad and just would run in that corner over to the pump house. And the intent of that was just to help when the managers are going back and forth to backwash and check chemicals, that they're not tracking all of that dirt and debris into the pool area, which is then getting back into the pool.
Could the board and the sidewalk come from the donated funds?
That would completely your pleasure, yes. The donated
I
funds
think-
are to be spent.
I
on
think that having
maintenance.
an extra, we've learned from the pool experience, having an extra something is handy, whatever that something is. Mhm. That would be my
It's needed, that's wear and tear stuff,
Mhm.
you know, the slide had issues or whatever, you know, so yeah, the rainy day funds to say, okay. We're gonna have to replace the stuff.
The donation funds you're referring to?
Well, yeah, but
Yeah.
I'm just saying we need to have some sort of fund reserve for when the pump goes out, when the, you know, when we have to replaster, when
Yes.
all this kind of stuff, so.
Do we have a game plan for the slide pump?
I'm working with, I shouldn't say Brent's helping me too with B&B pools. I was honestly, I told them, we're almost done. Let's just
Yeah.
focus on
Yeah,
making
no,
sure
just
that
have
we
it
get
up
that
and running
taken
for next
care of.
year.
So they did come out, had it running while they were here, it was great, no issues. The very next day, we could not get it going, and so we are working on that though.
Okay, so the other thing is, there's a middle school teacher named Mark Giha. And he sort of works as a consultant in Sylvania to make sure their 5 public pools are licensed and certified. And he has converted all those pools to a saltwater system, which is less wear and tear on the pumps.
We had talked a little bit.
Yeah, so I think we need to put some money in the budget to have him come out, consult whether or not we can even look at something like that. He'd have to get up to speed on Michigan regulations and figure that out, because our current system is going to continue to burn out pumps at a faster rate than if we move to a saltwater system. Now, much of the mechanics stay the same. It's just how you feed chemicals, and there might be some mechanical changes, but I don't think it'd be that great. If they don't overcome it. So I'm not sure what those consulting fees would be like, but that's something we can schedule.
So that would go in outside contractor line 429 or 101,753,818. There's nothing there right now. You guys let me know if you want to put something there.
Yeah, I'd like to put in like $1,500, $2,000.
You've talked to that person, you're saying, and spent a little bit of time for Jason.
I haven't directly, Brian Sills has, and I do know that in a past life, he managed the Sylvania Country Club for a lot of, so he was in a similar type position that Brian is in now, and has since sort of graduated into this newer role where he's not day-to-day management, but he is just overseeing the upkeep, maintenance, and annual certifications that they have to go through in Ohio. So that all the Sylvania pools operate.
I'm not opposed to that. Sounds like something that could be proactive.
Yeah, I think
Let's
so.
talk about it. Let's visit that.
Magic number, anyone, 1,500, 2,000?
It's probably not gonna be cheap, but it may save us in the long run.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go with 2,000, how's that sound?
That works.
And we're gonna, the 7,000 and the 3,000. Is that simply gonna reduce the $80,000, or is that $80,000 has been spent?
No, that 80,000 is what's remaining. And I specifically listed that out, so we can take those items from that 80,000.
Okay, got it.
Okay, festival.
So really that 79,000 should be zero,
I was just gonna say, yeah.
and the 7,000 and the 3,000 get us to 188,350.
I can't zero that out because those are restricted funds. So we have to identify those restricted funds. Because if I zero that out, then it appears that we've absorbed that into our general fund, which we cannot do.
Okay, but it looks like we're spending expending that fund, so can we offset it in revenue or something like that?
So we can't because the revenue was already earned. So what we will do is like whatever we don't spend every year, whatever's remaining will be appropriated until it's gone. In that way, it's identified as the donated funds that are restricted for that purpose. And it doesn't get lost within the general fund. So that's kind of what had happened in the past with some items, is we didn't track it year to year. And then somebody was like, oh, Danielle, did you know, blah, blah, blah.
This is here, yeah.
Yeah, so that's why I listed it like that.
Okay, so it should be 69,000.
Right, so even if we end up only spending 10,000 of that, then next year we will still appropriate 69,566.
Okay. So don't, okay, so we're not gonna double count that 10,000 then. I populated it, but.
Yeah, I just left it at 0 and then I'll know that that's gonna come out of those donated fund portions. Festival is the next section. It's exactly the same as it was this year. You guys have questions, let me know. Bachmeyer Little League,
So wait a minute. Go back to the pool.
yes.
So that takes us down to 186, 360, right?
No, at 257, 916.
Correct.
We basically have to spend the money.
Well, if we use it as a placeholder, if we don't expend that, if we just continue with whatever it is that those donations sit there for a few.
Yeah, 188, 350. If you
186, 350 or 360. So I mean, that's, again, the public needs to understand. I hate to say it, but they need to know what that pool costs us. 186,000 a year to operate that. We used to budget 30-40,000 on the previous pool. And we're also paying off the debt of whatever.
2.5 mil.
Yeah, so I mean. That's a massive chunk of change out of our general budget.
We spent
But you said it very plainly this time.
almost as much on that pool as we appropriate to
DPW or
the library.
Yeah,
for a whole year.
exactly for 3 or 4 months of that thing.
Why do we have pension and health and dental in the pool? Is that because it's also
DPW
office,
It's DPW wages.
DPW and office spaces? Okay.
So no, just DPW.
Okay.
None of our wages come out of
Okay.
pool. We just have them within general fund.
Got it. Yeah,
But
you're
exactly
exactly
right. You
right.
guys collect, you guys do the billing, you guys do the, you know what I mean? So
We do, yeah, and because it's general fund and we're already funded up above in general, we don't refund it here or split it up just because it complicates things more. But yes, we do spend time on the pool here.
So just to your point, like pool chemicals, pool professional services.
yeah, and then that's the one thing I wanted to
And
mention.
pool electric.
Right, so we're gonna run the.
$42,000.
Well, that's why we're jumping from, after getting feedback from residents, you're talking 4,000 on electric to 12. If that's what the people want, they're gonna have to understand that we're gonna have to pay for it, and
Something else.
that's not cheap, so.
That works. And we can, I mean, people can say, I voted for it or I voted against it. It's irrelevant. It's there. We're using it. That's what it costs.
And that's why we can't use the word proactive enough. And it's unfortunate that when the pool was designed, a millage wasn't passed for operations. But now it eats into our
We
budget.
needed an operational cost, and it's one that we were never given.
Yeah.
So.
Festival questions there? Sorry, just trying to
Keep
move on.
Well, that was a village vote, right? For the pool.
Yep.
So Bachmeyer Little League is the next item. And there's a couple, again, kind of the same, if you go down to line 479 and below. There's a couple carry forward items, which I've identified on the far left so that you guys know. We had budgeted for playground mulch this year, which was not enough, so we're requesting to carry that forward and add some funds there. DPW has been stretched really thin. We still need to repair that retaining wall from last year. And then same with the bathhouse. The trust fund, this is another item that is classified as restricted, so that has to stay there because we identified with the courts that the trust fund would pay for the dugout repairs, so that can't change.
Does
any
that
of
buy
the-
us
I'm sorry.
at grade or does that replace what we have?
So. My understanding is everybody is very passionate that it is to replace what we
Okay.
have.
Yeah, I agree.
We should be able to do that with donated labor. We did the one at Farber, for 1,500.
I appreciate you volunteering to lead that, Mike, or James.
I will,
not Mike.
I'll delegate it out to the guy who ran the last job.
That was perfect. Gwen's gonna do the garbage at the festival in the above.
That's bad. So see, it's almost. Tell them we got a big budget too.
And then we are requesting 3,000 for tree trimming and removal at this park as well. But any changes there, any questions, concerns?
Is that a Bachmar or is that a Farber tree?
This is Bogmeyer Little League.
Are you replacing trees or you're just?
Yes, we are actually partnering with Legacy and we're gonna get as many trees as we can.
Yes.
And they're eligible anywhere throughout the village.
Yes.
And then we're gonna turn around and partner with River Raisin Watershed, who's doing the same program. And we did get a grant for the 13
Yes.
trees
Awesome.
as well, so we will be tree planting fools.
Yes.
It's just one of those things like the dugouts, you know, I mean, yeah, it costs a little more, but it's that nostalgia that the people want it. And I guess we're gonna have to fund it, so.
Okay, Ellis Park. I'm trying to remember, I don't think I had too many changes. Again, big thing is I've got a lot of carry forward here. Again, DPW is doing a ton of stuff, so. You guys don't have to carry forward any of these. You can remove any if you guys have questions. We are, excuse me, proposing to add electrical panel upgrades so along the fence area, as you kind of turn that corner, we have electrical panel there. It's just kind of old and looks a little dingy. Well, DPW did such a fantastic job with the grandstands with that panel. That looks really nice, and then you go around the corner and it looks terrible. So we just wanted to budget some money for them to match that and make it look nice.
It needs some
Minor
upgrades.
thing.
Well, remember Halloween where we're having issues with the tripping on the panel and whatnot. I mean,
Oh,
it is
yes,
very-
yeah, we did
yeah,
have
it's
some
nice.
trouble with that too. So that is in there again, you guys can remove that, and then the fencing, that is supposed to go in front of the grandstands. We're requesting to bump that up a little bit as well, but otherwise.
What line item is that?
Right at the very bottom.
515,
Why did they pull the posts out there when that was like the intention to just
because of how damaged all of that was, they were not
the
reusable.
posts or?
Yes,
Mike, I know you spent some time on that, but I've been down there a bit lately.
You like it without?
It's pretty nice.
it is really nice.
It just, I don't know,
It's open.
Yeah, since they pulled the post, I mean, it's kind of pointless. That was the point, was to reutilize what was there. I don't have a problem with it going.
I had a business owner was upset at me for letting us take the grandstands down, he'd like to have it back there, but.
it's great. And the aluminum is great. There's a place to set up like lawn chairs right behind home, right?
Yeah, it was kind of nice because when you're sitting on those bleachers right there, the kids kind of just naturally play in that grassy area and you can keep an eye on them right there. And I was down there last week for our first adult softball not tournament, but games. And I thought it was great.
Yeah, I was down there Thursday.
I was there.
Bill was busy working.
Umpire was getting heckled.
Yeah.
Just,
Rightfully so.
I guess distinguish between like the building repairs, ground repairs, whatever, and capital projects, like, is that like a maintenance versus improvement sort of thing, or what?
Yes, that's what I try to keep, like things that we already have up above and or capitals like the big items, so like the playground replacement I have there. So we need to talk about that too. Am I leaving the 5,000 really quick before I move on to capital, which is the next section in Ellis Park?
I don't know. The fence, when you say around the grandstands, is that
And I should have made it round, it really was intended to
that when
be,
when we enter brackets? I don't know if
That seems high to me, but. I think it's a lot cheaper, but you guys don't want it, The intention was to replicate what that original grandstand like the Alice inside.
Kind of like a wide open.
Yeah,
we can always delay this too, I mean, it's not like it can never come back up, maybe wait a year and see how it goes. Okay. So then the capital projects below. I have highlighted. With the exception of the carry forward for the shuffleboard repairs and removal, again, you guys don't have to reappropriate that, but I did propose to carry that forward. Everything else is new. Permanent cornhole, that came from the Parks and Rec Board. Skate park repairs, this year we did some repairs in-house. We need to start actually replacing pieces. And I don't know if you guys recall, within the capital budget, we have it budgeted to replace one piece a year. And this would be one of those pieces. And right now I don't have any of this in the budget, so you guys tell me what to add. Playground replacement, I will say, I don't think this is incredibly critical at this moment, but it is getting to a point that it needs replaced. I would actually love to not put that in the budget, and you guys, this would come before you guys officially at a council meeting, but I would like to apply for a grant through Game One to replace that.
No.
So I would say maybe we hold off
Let's
on
pay
that.
for
Question, cornhole, where do you put the bags that they're not?
So we would have to get a little, what that quote includes is a permanent cornhole, a little sign with the rules, and then a bench, a storage bench. And that's where you would put all of the items and the bags and stuff that go with it.
Do we,
And they're concrete. There's pictures in the capital improvement plan. I don't know if you guys went through that huge document back when I sent it. I can resend it too, but there are some pictures of what.
How do we prevent theft of the
That's
bag?
my only issue.
Yeah, I don't know. And if you want my opinion, I love this idea. I don't think it's a priority. But again, it was in the capital request.
I don't think it's a priority yet. I'd like to see how we do on our Spark grant
Yes.
to see.
I agree, because we've taken a lot out of the park, and I don't want it to become a whole, you know, what I mean, the flats again, I want it to be utilized. We built the bridges, we're talking about the pathway through it, whatnot. Let's improve the elements, add elements as we can, but.
Have you guys been out to see those pathways?
Yeah, I went down and drove down through there the other night, walked around and
Nice.
saw some.
So I'm gonna say this about the skate park repairs. That skate park is not appropriate for the level of the skateboarder here in town. It's not, I know it's very well intentioned, but it's just not needed to that level. That's what that is almost X Games type ramps and setup. We don't have anybody to that level. So as we go through these skate park repairs, we probably need to get a little bit more of an updated version of what a skate park looks like. They have what they call street skates, where they replicate benches and curbs. They don't have these big ramps.
Concrete.
Maybe that's something we can,
Yeah.
Parks and Rec, we can certainly.
And I think that if you guys fund this, that it would be a phased approach to do just that, James, and not.
I'd like to have Parks and Rec sort of maybe put something together before I look at funding for $11,000. I just, it's a lot. Like there's a wall down there and I wonder why.
Oh, that clear wall, that's all structure, what is that? Have you talking about?
Well, there's that thing, but then in the skate park, there's also
Oh.
a massive wall that I'm like, wow,
What does that do? Yeah.
I don't know why that's there.
Get the skateboard all the way to the top.
Yeah.
Without me on it.
I could throw it over there
Yeah,
too.
there's more razors and scooters stuff in it.
Yeah.
Nobody's escaping.
So I do have
But it's
remove and
definitely-
fill the old pool site too, which is part of the Spark grant, but I left it in here. Because that's what I was gonna ask you guys, if we don't get the Spark grant, do we budget for it now? And if we get it, we can reallocate that or what? Because I know this is identified as a priority for you guys.
Let's leave it in there.
I'm with the whole pool, but full site, yeah.
Okay. Arch Bridge redecking and cap, I have at 40,000. I do want to talk about this. So you guys, with the ARPA funds, had set your priorities as the river line and this Arch Bridge. So you guys just approved the engineering for that. And I don't have a final because they're not started, but they're estimating that to be 250. So with the engineering, we would have enough money and construction in ARPA funds to pay for this rather than paying in general fund. Do you guys want to wait and see where those quotes come in for the river or bid it out and then make sure we have enough money? How do you guys want to handle the Arch Bridge?
I wanna get something done. Because how much money did we just put into it?
380,000.
Yeah, so 10% investment to make is a great return on that investment.
Yeah, we already know we've got one bridge to replace, we don't need to.
That's 750 numbers, not gonna get it done. So.
Go back to the river erosion, so that's on
That
top
was a
of-
duplicate.
Oh,
No,
okay.
I just,
Okay,
yeah, I was gonna tell you guys I messed up there and I
I was
must
gonna
have.
say,
Yeah,
you know,
sorry.
was it like partial or
I
whatever?
think I put it in and then I got the official quote and put it in a different spot.
I'd like to see that 40,000 get funded.
I hope it's less than that, but
Yeah, I do
it
too,
doesn't seem.
but the cost of things. So
Well, do we want to put a place marker of 25?
that's what I was just gonna say, do we want to do a little less than 40? Because I think we can fully fund that with the ARPA funds. But until I get that final engineer, or really until we bid it out, I won't know that for sure.
We were just talking
So-
about at the top, putting some metal
Right, the cap.
cap.
Yeah, so that's what this is for, is
That
the,
that can't. 25 is maybe excessive.
the decking runs underneath the sides. And then that decking was not replaced when we redid the bridge.
Okay.
And
But
I,
the new rails have nothing to do with it, right?
right, and I agree with you, I hope it's less than that, but. I don't know.
I'd say 25 is a placeholder.
The bridge thing, we're supposed to be coming to complete that. I'm hoping I can get it paid this fiscal year. If not, I would carry that forward. So I just put it there so you guys kind of know. And then the shuffleboard we talked about, the pedestrian bridge, we cannot afford that at all, but it's in there because it was a request.
Are we doing the shuffleboard? Remind me. I know it's a carryover, but
We were going to remove some of them
Yes.
and repair the others.
man, I don't know, I just say wait on that stuff. I don't see that as,
They used to have leaks, didn't they?
yeah, I just think it being utilized. I mean, maybe I could be wrong. I mean, the big thing, pickleball, I don't hear shuffleboard.
Right.
Well, it's cut out the broken ones and leave the few that are usable and pretty much just clean up the area and stuff, really.
I would just take them right out of there. I would take all of them right out of there. I would like, with your guys' permission, I would like to revisit that and have the Parks and Rec team really look at that. If you guys are cool with it, what do you think?
Zero it or leave it then?
I'm just saying if they're already there and they're usable, I mean, again, it's one more element. Again, we continue to pull things out of that park if. The
But
ones
they
that
look
are
like
cracked,
crap,
there.
they don't work.
Well, some of them are, that's why we would keep the ones that are okay and get rid of the nasty.
You know what you
patches.
put out there might just. Shuffleboard this.
I'm more of a curler, so.
Yeah, Carla?
That's your guys' call. I'm just saying, I just don't see that as,
I think Gwen does have a point in Parks and Rec. Let's delegate it to them and see what they say.
see if they come up with maybe something else.
So the other item is the Marrow Park plant replacement, and these are the tiered plants. I don't know if you guys have seen it lately, but they've been dying.
Yes.
DPW is pulling them because pulling them is better than just having dead plants in there, but it's really starting to look pretty bare. I did broach the subject with Rotary to see if there was a possibility that that be a service project where the village purchased the plants and then we all go to plant them. I don't know if there's some other partnership, maybe the 4-H kids at the school, or I'm not sure, but
Yeah, this was having
Would
a
you
company
guys-
come in and do it, right? I mean, there's gotta be a better way.
yeah, yeah, so that's what we had budgeted, but my hope would be we can cut that down.
Again, I
with some
think it'd be a Parks and Rec
volunteer
thing. I really do.
It could
About
be
that
that
day for
too.
Parks and Rec.
But do we wanna keep that 8,800 in there for, and then hopefully again, it comes in a little less, but.
Well, again, if we're gonna have to buy some tango down that way. It's gotta look nice. I don't know.
So so we're gonna retain the 66,000. And then we're gonna adjust the 40,000 for the art bridge to 25. And then we're gonna, the plant replacement. You guys want 80?
Yeah, and then am I leaving the 8,000 for shuffleboards, right? I
Yeah,
have that in there. Okay,
Leave it in there. What do
So-
we, is it okay
so let's-
for something else?
I think we leave it in.
yeah,
Okay.
we could.
I think you leave it in, but I think we delegate that to Parks and Rec and come back.
Okay, maybe, all right, you're thinking.
Cause that could be something like a cornhole, if you're gonna remove it to Mike's point, let's replace it with something.
Exactly.
So that might be
Yeah.
8,000 we might,
Put
Put in-
cornhole versus a shuffleboard.
right, so. So that gets me to 181, 650, is that what you have?
they have 196, 650.
Oh, you have the 15,000 in there.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, I did, because I wasn't 100%, so.
And so that's you're gonna carry that forward to 20.
I may not have to, but I did put it in there just in case. I need to actually, I'll reach out to Robert tomorrow and see when he's gonna be here.
Okay.
Did you take out your, river raisin, or
Yes.
river erosion, did you take it out?
Yeah, I'm so sorry, I don't know why. I
No, that's all right,
didn't
just
do that.
making sure.
Next is Claire Bachmeier. Oh,
Sorry,
no.
Ellis. So that's from Google Earth, that's how many trees we've lost just between like 2007 and 2022. We're gonna lose the two along 223, the two massive. Whatever the heck they are,
Holy cow.
Legacy,
cottonwoods.
legacy.
Yeah, we have to get that replaced.
Yeah,
At
so
they-
the
They
playground.
got 5,000 trees that they're dying to get rid of, and they said
Legacy golf.
we can have as many as we want.
For the Parks and Rec, we met. with
And it's
them
no cost, we just have to
about,
plant it.
river raisin erosion, and but they're.
They just sent
Friendly
us a
county.
list
And so
this
there you
week,
have
or
those
actually
trees.
yesterday, so we're looking at
Fine
that,
horse
and I'm gonna talk to Brent.
Um,
I'll work with Parks and Rec on that.
The dog park drinking fountain it needs some maintenance, it's not working right.
Correct, it is not.
We need better equipment in that dog park, it's kind of beat up, some of like the lining whatnots. Or like the jump, the hoops,
And
Sunshine.
I did talk to Brent too about, we have in our list to replace some hydrants, and we were talking about taking an old
we have a
hydrant to
couple, yeah,
put
exactly.
down there. So we are gonna add that because we can't use that old hydrant.
Perfect, yeah,
Um,
we have them already, so, absolutely.
What dog?
Weeks.
Old pool, yes, the S curve. As much as we disdain what we're gonna do with the bridge, that S curve is bad, that is. Whether you're riding a bike, rollerblade, whatever, that thing needs to be resealed, replace the trail from the footbridge down into the park. Again, it should have been sealed, it's wearing up just from the wear and tear on it, it needs to be, the asphalt is bad on it. We need to think about getting that replaced. And then before we move on, like, what is our goal, what is our plan for the bridge? We're not gonna talk about that massive elephant of 750 grand in there. Are we gonna rehab it? We're gonna take it down and try to repiece it? Are we gonna replace it? We're gonna say, bye bridge, like, we need some sort of plan, goal. What are we gonna do with that thing? I just feel like, it came in two pieces. They threw it up in 2 days. If it has to come down and we get quotes if the top cords are good on it, the side cords are good on it. I would love to see a quote on replacing the lower cords and say, can we get some more years out and use the.
Well, I thought the engineering said that was not a good material for location and.
Well, if
they
the
recommend.
core, if the bottom chords were the steel that it should be, I'm not sure, the self weathering, we don't have issues with the sides, it's literally the
The
bottom.
bottom line is salt collects.
So I don't know, I mean, we can't just, you know, not consider it over these next couple of years, we're gonna have to do something because it's. You know, we've talked about it for 5 years and look how bad it's gotten, so what is the plan, what is the goal with that? What, you know, are we just gonna take it out and leave the abutments and. Say it is what it is, and reopen the 223 sidewalk, I mean, we need to come up with a plan.
We can open up the 223 sidewalk. I'm done.
We only close that because we had the
Put
bridge.
that in. I thought it didn't want it.
Yeah, we would have to work with MDOT because that guardrail was installed
That was
there.
replaced after we, yeah,
And right now you can't get to that sidewalk without going into 223.
Right.
Which with the curve right there would not be good.
but we have to have something on the radar for that, we can't just say,
Right.
Oh.
you know, but now only 5 people are allowed to walk across the bridge and you know, like. What is the plan for it? I don't know, engineering something, I at least say we're addressing it, here's what the plan is, here's what our options are, we'll have to fund it some other way, but. What are our options? You know, we
Well,
talked about doing
we've
it,
had the engineers look at it, right?
Yeah.
We have that study. We have that evaluation. I thought it was actually more than 750, I thought it's somewhere around 880.
That's the number. They were over 800,000 for sure.
So it's
Was the number that they threw out.
That came from their report. I thought they did say 800,000 in their presentation as well, but I pulled that right from their report.
Okay.
I did not add any inflation or anything, but
So Mike, you're saying to put the dog park stuff there into L's, because that's not in there at all.
correct,
I'm with you. Okay.
yeah, I mean, I think we need some sort of continued investment in that, just to make it more usable and utilizable, we'll have the pathway that leads to it, which helps. Get people to it, whatnot, so. But the bridge is obviously under discussion, and it has to be made.
Yeah, some tough decisions are gonna be made. You're right. You are absolutely right.
I don't want to go next year to where we're at festival time, it's like, holy crap, we're closing that bridge again, I mean, think about how bad it was when we had to close. The arch bridge during festival, I mean, it's pie in the face, it's literally just an embarrassment that thing's sitting there, it can't be utilized.
so we did close it this year. They were gonna help, we were gonna all work together to monitor it. They had some issues. We ended up closing it, so it was closed.
And I saw a lot of people kind of using the.
I did too, yeah, especially Friday night.
Two
I
twenty three
think,
sidewalk.
yeah,
And the road diet is not gonna.
No,
happen within the next.
No, that could have been a solution, potential solution.
Yeah. So that's out. Well, we either look at. Making the arch bridge more accessible. Or we replace the steel truss bridge.
But the arch bridge has become more accessible.
Right, so you'd have to make,
What more, I'm not gonna be smart, what more would we have to do, because you got your ADA, and you got your concrete from both ends.
We should reopen the 223 cross then, I mean. Or something, it's just,
so maybe what we do right now is in the budget, nothing, and we just, staff starts reaching out to MDOT and having the conversation what it's gonna take to reopen that. And we can bring this back to you guys. And go from there, because we can't afford the 750, we know that, but at least we're making some progress to find out what our options or solutions are.
it shouldn't be a terrible move. I mean, literally, I think they replaced or changed the guardrails during the TE process when even before the bridge, so it's still accessible, it's just moving some of that guardrail to have the access back connect to the sidewalk. It's not a huge money.
I personally, Daniel, I like your suggestion. Let's reach out to MDOT, see what we can do, see what's there.
Okay, I will work on that and definitely bring it back to you guys. Anything else with Ellis Park?
Sure, hope we get it. Do we have an idea when that spark grant? I don't, Sessions.
September.
September?
You were gonna kick his butt.
Yes, we are. Okay.
I hope so.
Is he part of that?
Yeah,
Sessions when he, oh, of course, he applied. Well,
Oh,
we
okay.
want to beat
yeah,
Sessions.
we wanna beat him with that. All right, Clara Bachmeyer Park, that is. If I recall the same, we've got our capital projects listed below, which I've got highlighted, trust fund, those are restricted funds that have to be. That again, were identified for the pedestrian bridge repairs, so we do have that money sitting there if you guys want to. Do some kind of engineering or do something, because we identified that that trust fund money was gonna go towards the bridge that connected the two parks.
Where are you at?
Claire Bachmeyer, under
Oh,
capital
that's good.
projects, the
Okay.
trust fund, the 51,761. So keep that in mind too, and again, I would, let's just keep it there.
What can we do with that?
So we identified when we did the trust funds, dissolve those, that we wanted to put that towards. Repairs or whatever for that steel truss bridge connection, so. That connects the two
Could
parks.
that potentially help us with the real,
Yeah.
the other one?
Okay, there you go.
I don't know, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would leave that for right now until we talk to MDOT, kind of like we just talked about.
Okay.
The other requests here are rotary shelter roof. I still don't have a final quote on that, but I can tell you what has happened. It's underneath that is bad. And it's the way those systems, you would have to pull the roof off to get to the part that's bad. And that's why it's so costly to replace that. And continues, I think though, when it rains, it like wraps up underneath and then is just
Yeah,
rotting
it's just
that way.
OSB and that's those insulated span panels. I mean, there's gotta be a way that we can work with them. It needs to be finished on each side. So then we tried to baby that for a long time now, but yeah, it's just. I don't know if we can get part of that from ARPA or whatnot, but it has to go, the whole thing has to come off.
Yeah. The other request is park sign replacement. It's the one, there's two of them that are over there, but it's the one by the parking lot that is completely faded.
You're talking about the
The metal.
Black with,
But
gold,
yes, yes. So we got a quote for that 2 years ago, it was 11,000, so I bumped it to 15 for inflation. And then the slide replacement is a carry forward and added $500, but any of those can be added, changed. You guys let me know, other than the trust fund.
let's talk about those bathhouses. We've had damage in there, we've had vandalism and whatnot, right?
Yes, it has been
How bad?
horrendous lately.
So do we need CCTV somehow? I mean, is it time to say?
What is that?
Closer, you know, whatever, they're damaging the slides, you know, again, if these. Sorry, on whatever, just stupid Zoom is on here, but if these kids are gonna continue to do this, whoever's gonna continue to do this. You know what, then we're gonna find out who it is and make them pay for it, because again, that's stuff that.
Oh,
comes
yeah.
out of our budget and
Yeah.
we need,
Yeah,
we need to protect, what.
Tree
we have.
tag?
Yeah, I did start looking
Yeah.
into those. In fact, Emily Mullins from Parks and Rec Board sent me over some different trail cams to see if maybe that's an option. And I was talking to Chief, we did get a quote to put cameras out there, but it is spendy.
Yep.
But that might be an option, that we can look into.
Everybody's on video these days, like it's just silent time to this, what it is. But and how often are they open? You know, I've been down there numerous times and, you know, there's no toilet paper, you can't even get in, they're locked. Like, what is it even purposeful to have those bathhouses utilized or, you know, just continue to be destroyed or not even usable? I guess it's something we need to talk about. It's, you know.
No, I think it's something that can be talked about. I mean, is it, would it be cheaper, better? I mean, porta potties.
Yeah, we've asked for, we've had the gentleman where the playground is now, you know, he doesn't want the, you know, the bushes came down, we need
Right.
to help with the barrier there, you know, the bathroom issue, all that sort of thing that we need to address.
Mhm.
So I mean, you know, where do we prioritize our funding for it? And rotary shelter, it's not gonna get any better. I mean, that's a huge expense, but that rough is shot.
Is there any chance, some of the festival put. Pay $5,000 or $1,000. That's not much, you know, but I mean,
I don't,
to use that, I mean,
I don't think they make money, do they?
I think they utilize it to put the next.
Right, they,
So,
right, it's a
Yeah.
break even.
Well, we're
process.
supposed to be like
my,
financials from that, but yeah.
So when I talked to the committee on that, they used to contribute, so my understanding, again, this was all pre-me, but they helped with some of the electrical upgrades. Some of those
Did they?
things,
Okay.
they've not done that, I don't know how long, I know not since I've been here. Because they're not making enough money to do that.
gotcha.
This last year, they talked about if they made enough money that they were interested in maybe buying new bleachers because they can utilize those at the event. I have no idea what the event looked like this year, if they made any money or not. But that's kind of been my experience, is they've not made enough to contribute to some of those costs. Like they used to.
And here's my only other last question on those two, Ellis and Claire Bachmeyer. So now we have the path. Are we budgeting maintenance, snow plowing? What is that in here, or is that, it can't come out of streets, right?
Yeah, it would have to come out of
It's
general.
probably not
fund.
been put in there yet, has it?
So I only have the wages, I don't have any maintenance budgeted for it.
So it's how in detail are we gonna go to maintain that through the winter? Are we gonna plow every, time it snows? Are we gonna leave it? What is the intent? What is the plan? But again, everything the DPW does, yes, it's funny.
Mhm.
Well, we can't plow the arch bridge.
Right.
I would love to not plow it and see what happens, see what kind of feedback we get. Because if you start, it's gonna be harder, if you never start,
Right,
that would.
I would say just go without
That's a
it.
good plan,
It's the first year and see what kind of feedback you get.
Yeah, I
transpires.
mean,
Yeah, because if the bridges haven't been done,
Well, you can't get equipment.
right, exactly, so I mean, yeah, so they've not
You're
been.
gonna have to truck.
Give it a whirl.
Rotary shelter re-roof, we've got to start allocating some money to it. Maybe not the full 160, but maybe we can allocate half and half next year.
what about the sign replacement, you wanna say no this year?
Any chance we can? Anything we can do to clean it up, make it halfway,
It's not dirty, it's just so faded,
you mean the back black or the black background?
like the words, the black isn't terrible, it's just all the words and like the gold portion that's. So it is a little bit raised, it makes it hard to see, it's just, I mean, the black is faded, but not nearly as bad as the gold. I mean, it's. The second time people know that that's the part that are local, but it's up to you guys and. Yeah,
Put that off one more year,
Yeah.
the park sign replacement,
I think we do.
just axe it all together for this year.
Yeah.
anything else on Clara? Bachmeyer Park?
We figure out. Shelter roof,
I put 80.
80,
there.
we're gonna do that,
So it's there for now.
right?
I think you guys are out of money, but
What you didn't do like a partial,
yeah, do 80 this year and then carry that forward and add 80 next year is what we talked about.
I think we need to start doing this more often on these projects, these large scale projects, setting it aside till you can do it.
Okay, so Farber Field. Again, pretty much the same. I've got the capital items below. So paint buildings and dugouts, this is a carry forward. I did bump this up a little bit. We've been trying to work with the Little League. It's just not been able to happen because this will be the second time it's carried forward. So our plan is, we're just gonna do it internally and get it done with because it does need to be taken care of. The other two, and then you guys can remove the 8,000, but we recommended it's such a minor amount. The other two are the dugout repairs replacements at 22,000 and then the parking lot rebuild at 165,000. And And that cannot just be overlaid, we have subgrade issues there and compaction, so if we just go overlay, it's gonna fall apart again.
Well,
So-
the 22,000 for the dugout should come from the. Donated funds,
The trust fund.
yes.
That's at Bachmeyer Little League. Not our,
Well, we can't use it, so,
no,
well, that's fine, it's nowhere near $22,000 to do that project. We could probably put 2,000 into it.
Can we stick with the normal colors, like the everything is down there, not go?
we were gonna paint it the same, the tan and I think.
Just
maroon.
matches everything with, yeah, the
Yeah,
block.
and it would cost so much to, so I know that the Little League, when they first talked to me about this, wanted to change it. I talked to them about that. It was not favorable, went to Parks and Rec, who had the same feedback to them. So we did agree and they'll stay the same colors.
Yeah, again, it's just minor things, you know, it's a great donation, but the pitching are overgrown, there's weeds in there, we've got issues with the dugouts, it's just, it needs maintenance, that thing was a heck of a lot of money, we need to continue to maintain it. Yeah, the lot is, atrocious.
Yeah, that lot's bad.
Yeah, so I say we put like $2,000-$2,500 for the dugout repair.
Anything you do it for that?
So we did the third baseline for. Actually, we did it for about $1,400. It was a lot of volunteer effort, but that's pretty much
And it worked, and the drainage and all that.
Oh, yeah. We tied
The
into
sidewalks and.
we tied in to an existing tile, and I think the other side is the same. What happened is the way the roof design, it's faulty and it runs the water into the cement block.
On the backside.
And
Right,
then-
where it's a sidewalk and in between, then.
So we popped up the sidewalk, we dug down, we pushed it back into place, pour filled, and then Todd Treeler rebuilt the roof. So now it just sheds and it looks great. Could use some paint, but that's about it. So we could probably get that done again.
Couple grand then, you say?
I think so.
I put 25 in there.
2,500?
Does that work?
25 grand.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. Yes, 2,500.
Parking lot?
We've already carried that forward from last year, right? We didn't do anything with it.
Yeah, it was requested last year and we didn't appropriate anything. So it'll, again, if you guys don't do it, it'll continue moving forward.
Yeah, it wasn't a carry forward, it wasn't even budgeted.
Correct, yeah.
50,000? Please put something on the books.
Yeah, 55.
What that second course process at the.
Okay.
26.8 something, I think.
Do they fill that whole lot when there's games? I mean, is it?
It's pretty full.
Yeah, it's pretty, it's,
Yeah, it's pretty full back there. It's pretty amazing, actually.
50, what you want, 55?
1/3.
How much are we digging into ARPA? I mean, is that what you're saying with the line and whatnot? What are we jumping at? Well, like, you're talking about it down here shortly, but.
Yeah, so in the budget, I'm saying we're gonna spend all of it, but right now, the water line, we just approved the engineering and they're estimating it at 250, so that'll put us just under 300,000 for that project. And then we've got 373 something, so you've got a little bit more there, but that's a very rough estimate. They'll have a more clear estimate once they design it. That was just like throwing out a just so we'd have an idea. So potentially, yes, we could have some ARPA funds, but we already talked, when you guys talked about ARPA funds, you said the river line was your priority and your second priority with ARPA fund was the arch bridge, getting that capped in the decking and taking care of that. Which would put us potentially a little bit under, but not much, it's pretty close. And you guys can always, when we get to the end of those projects, if we have anything left, we'll talk about, okay, what do we want to do to finish this off? Okay, so parking lot rebuild, are we generally comfortable with the 55 right now for part of it, or?
Yeah, let's leave it in there for placeholder.
Okay. Tennis courts are next. It is the same with the tennis court resurfacing. This is another, it was requested last year. We put no money towards it. I don't know how we're gonna fund it, but it's in there. It's up to you guys.
The base is bad. I mean, that's why we have the sinkhole, that's why it has to be taken down to the compaction.
But we also, I guess I should say, so 49,500s to resurface, we could do like a crack fill to make it last. I don't know what that would be. If I had to guess, I'm gonna say maybe 8,000.
I could tennis courts are like shuffleboard or shuffleboard.
I think it's a bit of I would put any money towards it. I mean, we can talk to Parks and Rec if you'd like, but
It doesn't solve the water agreement and it doesn't solve the, the other things down the, we talked about the school too, so I mean, it's just.
I have been out there fairly often in the past 3 or 4 weeks, and there is quite a bit of use out there, believe it or not. One night I was there, there was a couple playing tennis, and there was about 8 people playing pickleball, and with 2 of them waiting to get on.
Where the lights working.
Are all working. There's one pole in the extreme northwest corner that none of those lights, and there's 4 of them on there, 3 of them on there, 3 or 4. And then there's one center pole, one pole to the east from that one that is also missing a couple lights.
So Sunday I was out there. And
The lights were on last
it
night
was
at 10
full
o'clock.
as well, and there was a couple people waiting. So we have 3 pickleball courts out there right now. They were all being used. The lights are working. The reason those are not replaced is, and we're having the same issue now at Ellis Field, and is that they're no longer selling those bulbs. They're requiring everybody to switch to the LED, and you have to replace that entire.
You might want to get a hold of Scott Abbott because he was facing the same issue.
Which is gonna be,
Oh, with
Football
their
field, the football field,
okay. About it.
see if he's got a solution.
Until we come up with an agreement on that water thing, I can't see us investing in it. I know it's utilized, but we gotta. Come up with something, 6 million gallons of water every
3 years.
2 million a year. All right, so we're gonna pass on that now.
Urban forestry is the same, except for equipment rental, which is bumped up to 55,000. That's to match kind of what we spent this year. We did have that storm, which increased it. Our request here is grind brush pile rather than burning. But I do want to talk about this. This quote would get us caught up, but it doesn't really help us moving forward. The last time we tried to burn, we started it. We got the township fire department got a complaint that there was residents that were having a hard time breathing. They came and put it out. I did meet with Chief Frucci last week and talked to him about this, and I'm like, what are our options? And he said that he's required, if people call and there's certain things that they say, he is required to put it out. We are going to try to burn at night to see if that will maybe help where we can get it burned and then move on during the day. It will still smoke, but take care of it. If not, we are running out of room. We have to do something. So I don't know. This came up last year with the grinding. We said, keep burning. We're not opposed to that. I just want you guys to understand why we haven't and why it's so large and we're having these issues.
Didn't we get a chipping quote or whatever? It was like atrocious.
So that that is a chipping quote to get everything taken care of. That's not to haul it off though. That's to chip everything that we have.
We could buy some property out somewhere and own that lot, right? Own an acre somewhere and burn it like further out of town, and that would be paid off in a couple of years of grinding and shipping stuff.
So Dan Rupp did come talk to me because he's got a massive pile, and then that last storm, he had some branches come down and had nowhere to put it. So he did come talk to me, and I shared kind of the challenges that we're faced with and what's going on, and he did get that taken care of, which is kind of just FYI, I guess. But he did talk to Larry Pixley, but he's all the way out on Pixley Road, which is north of Deerfield. Which is kind of, so then we're gonna have increased costs for the trucks, because the debt pays rental for the trucks and the wages. I don't know how much, I literally just got this information last week, so I've not really looked into it or done anything with it yet. But that ultimately, we have a pile now that we have to do something with, regardless of however we move forward. We
Because,
will,
well,
even if you budget this, we're gonna try to burn.
we
it
also
down,
pay,
but-
what's his face for the rental of that property that we burn.
Correct.
So, yeah, so, I mean, everything compounds, we just need to find something and. It's, again, it's a service that we provide that a lot of municipalities don't.
Yeah.
People love it, I think, you know, again, we need to toot our horn that we're doing it, but it costs money, we need to. You know,
And if
Figure
you're
out a
out
way to
there
do
with
it.
a pack of hot dogs. Are we doing? Doesn't count.
Why don't we make a really big bonfire?
exactly, yeah.
Because they used to be a lot bigger than what they are now.
Yeah, and you guys ought to go check out that brush pile.
It'd be
Big
it'd be
trees,
about
too.
the size of the ball field, the whole thing.
Right?
Yeah, it would not be safe.
How does this relate to, again, the maintenance and replacement of the tree canopy in the village? Is this part of that, or is? I'm just going back to like our old school, like we had our tree study that we've utilized for years and years, and in this maintenance schedule that we're supposed to be investing, but never really did. It talks about, you know, we have $1 million worth of trees back in 1995 is what they considered us to have. And then we had this maintenance schedule that they wanted us to, you know, the first year was catching up. And then it got cheaper as we go. So are we building some sort of maintenance schedule? I think we're doing a lot better on replacing what we take out. But is there a way to lessen the cost if we do a maintenance schedule on these?
Yeah, and there may be, I've not worked on that. I've been working on the free trees.
Yeah.
Not gonna lie.
Yeah, but-
Just because right now that's the most beneficial to our budget, but that's something I can work on, Mike, but I don't have the answer for that tonight. We don't have, this does not include money to replace trees, so this covers our mosquito spraying costs, which we've bumped up to 12,000 a little there, from the 10, and that's just due to inflation and doing the same amount that we're doing now. And then just generally we pick up a ton of brush. Hopefully we don't have an ice storm or something major next year like we did this year, but even without the storms, it's kind of amazing the amount of brush that we pick up. One of the ordinances I am going to work on is right now we allow commercial people, if I hire somebody to come cut a tree down, they can put it at the curb, which I don't think is fair to our residents who are paying for this through their tax dollars. I would like to propose to you guys to amend the ordinance to exclude commercial, that it's limited to those residential people that are where you're not paying a tree company or landscaping company who's then charging you and then leaving it there.
Right.
And my understanding is that was amended a few years ago, but I was gonna talk to you guys about that as a way that we can continue doing this program, but not,
Well,
I don't know, just.
all right, so if we put in $20,000 for the grind brush pile. And I scroll down, if yet to make any movement on the library. Per this calculation, we're negative $100,000 for our capital projects.
Correct, and you still have, if you wanna increase the library and you have the library roof. Are the last items after urban forestry.
All right, so. Well, it's a stopping point, we're an hour and a half past our scheduled time, so that's where we're at to resume tomorrow. If we want to stay within the 3-month reserve at 450,000. We've got to find $100,000. Budget.
I think that 3-month reserve is critical.
Oh,
Cause you never know.
You never know what you're gonna
You never know what you're gonna get.
thank you for staying late, everyone. I need a motion to adjourn.
Now,
Meeting adjourned.
can I just leave this right here?
Yeah, we'll back tomorrow, so works for me. Nobody will.
It's really nice having.
Can I just sweep here?
Well, you just take.
Yeah, I guess I take it there. Wake me up tomorrow.